Hey, if you're new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me, and honestly, it'd make my day. If you already did, thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, if you like listening to fan fiction, check out my other channel. The link's in the description. Deadly Drinking Pirate by Darren. Ace was wondering about that sake he stole from those pirates before allowing his little brother Luffy drink it when they became brothers. And now, Luffy has gained a new ability, one that defies the laws of devil fruits and yet makes him even stronger than before. Watch this drunk-proof pirate become the king of them all. Mature Luffy dual devil fruit Luffy harem.
What is it to you? Usopp asked with an edge. He had been that way since he first heard of an avalanche coming only for it to vanish in an instant. Something was definitely at work, but it could have happened from any single point on the entire island. It was a foolish idea to even consider looking for the one that caused the avalanche of snow and rubble to halt before it could reach even the nearest village. Are you some bounty hunter after our captain's head? When he reached for his rifle and the other Straw Hats for their weapons, they saw the stranger laugh instead. Please. As if I could turn Luffy even if I was interested in his bounty. Ace, nervous, chuckled, adding to the Straw Hat's suspicions. I did see his bounty poster and I have heard that Luffy is here in the Grand Line. I didn't want him to look for me, so here I am, looking out of my life. Devil fruit, Zoro said out of the blue. You have a devil fruit. It is the best thing to explain how you were able to halt the snowfall on this cupcake of an island with frost icing. So how is a devil fruit user afraid of our captain? None of us know you. Me neither. Ace replied. But I know Luffy, and yes, I do have a devil fruit. But that is not going to help me catch up to Luffy getting a head start on me. That damn younger brother of mine. He growled, and this got the Straw Hats both on edge and puzzled by that expression. Little brother. Ace cringed at the sheer volume of the pirates yelling at once. Hey, I hadn't been his big brother ever since we had that cup of sake 10 years ago. I actually been out for months. Ace shouted in defiance, like he was offended by their response or their expression. And whenever I tried to ask what happened, Luffy will just not say a word and pound me to the ground. After a dozen or two times, I just gave up. Luffy is the younger but stronger brother of the bunch. He even scares me sometimes when he goes off. The Straw Hats didn't know what to make of this. Luffy had a brother, and yet their captain is stronger than his older brother? Then Usopp remembered something that Luffy said. Flashback begins. What just happened, Luffy? Nami asked of her boyfriend, who didn't even look disgusted or shocked, but concerned. I am sure that he was just waiting, Nami. He was holding in all that pain until he saw me. Luffy then put his hat on his chest, the traditional act of saying prayers to the newly deceased. He was getting close to that age of his long life. You have been here? In the Grand Line before? Usopp finally walked up to his captain about that encrypted talk. Usopp. Luffy said sternly. When you get drunk, your mind is as gullible as a child and as forgettable as your great-grandfather. What better way to keep a secret? Flashback ends. Luffy, Usopp whispered and then turned to the one of the Rockies. The tingling feeling on the back of his head told him to do so. Just what can your power do? XXXXX. Meanwhile, come one Chopper, she won't bite. Luffy teased Chopper, struggling to get him into letting Nami hold him. You're like a little boy trying to get out of a bath. No, big brother. Chopper wasn't acting out of fear for getting sick from Nami's ailment or getting her cooties, it was something else, and Nami saw it in his eyes. It was his cutest that prevented her from frowning. Then Chopper stopped struggling when Luffy rubbed him under the chin. Ah, Nami couldn't help herself to see Chopper acting like a house cat to Luffy's magic touch. She then reached and rubbed the little reindeer the same, seeing that Chopper didn't notice the difference in finger complexion. But he sure did when he found himself in Nami's arms. Big brother. Chopper couldn't believe that Luffy tricked him into submitting by extorting his personal favorite spot to be rubbed. He didn't care that Nami felt rather soft even with the fever trickling at his fur. Why are you afraid, little guy? You're too cute to be eaten up. Nami decided to tease Chopper a little, but then noticed that the reindeer had actually gave up trying to get free from her grasp. Chopper looked like he had just gone down the alleyway off memory lane. Chopper. Nami was about to panic, thinking that she had just ruined Chopper's day when she felt Luffy hold his hand over hers. Don't blame yourself, Nami. Chopper hasn't found a good reason to even like his nose. Luffy said, and then rubbed it in a way that Chopper looked a little relaxed but still forlorn. Reindeer all have black noses. To have one of a different color is to be a disgrace in their eyes. Even his own mother. That's terrible. Why would she do such a thing? Nami shouted. She almost felt that way with Belmere since they were poor. But this was much bigger and worse than anything Nami could think of. No one knows, but that doesn't matter anymore. She could be somewhere else, never to mate again for all we care. Luffy said coldly. Even if she left the herd to find another mate, the entire mountain had seen what she did to Chopper. No one will ever want her ever again. That is her punishment. Nami could have sworn that Luffy spoke from experience. You were there too, she said, but no one answered. And through your powers, you confronted that reindeer and told every other herd on the island of what she done. Luffy then finally nodded. You are getting closer to the truth, one that I knew will be revealed once I entered the Grand Line again. I just never will forget when I saw Chopper being treated the worst by his own kind. Luffy spoke with a tone that was colder than the snowy air, but it wasn't at anyone in the room. It was probably at a soul that has long passed away. I felt like tearing her head off, but the worst I could do was punish her. She was doomed to never mate again, to possibly bear a child she was just reject. Luffy continued, and then he came. Chopper's friend, his companion and his real father. He was. Then, Luffy and Chopper stiffened, as if they suddenly turned to statues. Statues that faced one certain direction. Luffy's nerves were on the edge and Chopper's nose was on high alert. Whatever presence they sensed, it was revolting to say the least. It's WAPOL. XXXXX back at the base of the drum Rocky, are you telling us, Usopp said with both him and the other Straw Hats having a shadow covering their eyes. That this was here all along? Usopp was referring to slope car that was attached to a large rope that was tied to a large tree and led all the way to the castle on top of the drum Rocky Mountain. Luffy climbed the mountain for no good reason. I'm sorry. A poor sap who had to be the one to bring the late news was cringing at the expressions of the pirates. I thought that this was torn down when the pirates from before sent Wapol off. Whatever, Zoro happened to be present and pulled that messenger by the scarf. He was going to do some foolish and extreme swimming in the Drum Island water with only his pants on. But the avalanche had caused to drift towards the Bighorn village. Does it still work? The messenger villager nodded furiously. I wish that you won't threaten the messenger pirate hunter. How are we going to explain to the captain? Zoro groaned to hear yet another person that was supposed to be on the king's gourd. Kuro had actually tried to chase after Zoro, to keep the latter from that stupid attempt to swim in the freezing waters. That was how they both landed in the same village. Luffy will increase my training, I know. Zoro moaned out when everyone won't stop staring at him, expecting an answer. I should have been used to it, but that captain just finds new ways to get me pale and whimpering. I will also tell Luffy that too, Zoro. Usopp was proud of himself for actually talking down Zoro and even pat him on the head. Like the swordsman was reduced to a mere boy. Whatever guys, we did get Dalton stabilized, but he still wants to get up to the castle. Alvida brought up and everyone turned to what is left of the massive man with a morality just as big and unwavering. Had to get arrows in his chest when Chess and Kuromarimo dated to attack the people of Bighorn, in an attempt to kill him. Wapol is T there. Even when his wounds were stitched up, the sheer cold was finally eating away the big, good man. He will live, but he will have to feel the cold of the icy winds and that he failed to stop Wapol from reaching his prize. T take me, T to T the castle. The Straw Hats looked at each other until Usopp stepped up to Dalton. If we refused, then we will have to answer to our fierce but loyal captain. This is the most we can do for a man who loves his town and his people. There are too little in this world. Dalton nodded and led Kuro and Zoro to lift him off the ground once again and help him walk over to the trolley car with the rest of Bighorn following behind, slowly. XXXXX meanwhile, ma ha ha ha. Wapol laughed in all of his disgusting arrogance. At last, I have arrived at my castle. And it looks just the same as it was when I ruled it. Wapol was egged on this with Chess and Kuromarino bowing to him on both ends. It won't be long before I will become the king of this miserable island once again. Kuromarimo sports a long, orange cloak, with white lining and black afros at each end, and white afros hanging from the front. He wears gloves that cover all fingers but his thumb, and resemble an afro. He has a large black afro on his head, and 3 small ones on his beard. He is of medium height and normal weight. He wears a shirt that's orange in the middle and white on the sides with light yellow buttons, along with orange shorts. He has hairy legs, and black boots with white laces. Overall, Kuromarimo resembles a boxer. And Chess was that same, strange man who was under the illusion of standing on water, right before the Straw Hats had their first encounter with Wapol and his so-called pirate crew. They were actually his personal army, and his ship was merely disguised as a pirate ship, since sailing the seas as thieves was not on Wapol's agenda. It was so he can flee from the 5 pirates who ran ashore before the Straw Hats did, and hopefully return to Drum Island. Wait, sire. At the top of the castle. Chess then pointed, and when Wapol looked to see what was up, he growled in anger. There wasn't a state flag or a nation flag, but one with the Jolly Roger. It was a pirate's flag that had sakura petals surrounding the skull and crossbones. What has happened to the flags of my kingdom? Who dares try to place a filthy pirate flag in its place? Wapol ranted until he heard a certain elderly woman chuckle. That garbage, I burned all of it ages ago when I moved in. That man was a fool, but he had a good heart, and I happened to like his personal flag. Kureha had exited out of the front door like a lady who has trespassers on her lawn. I don't know how you found this island, but you are not welcome here, especially here. This is the resting place of a great doctor that you laughed at. He was an idiot, a quack doctor who couldn't cure anyone. He was also a con man and a thief. I refuse to have my beautiful castle be a graveyard for the weak and stupid. Wapol retorted almost immediately. And as your king, I order you to leave my castle. As I refused to allow you to eat my ship, Wapol then heard the voice of someone else that he wished he didn't. I won't let you take back this castle. Go and steal a little girl's miniature castle and be its king for all I care. You, a pirate in my kingdom. You don't belong here? Wapol shouted to see Luffy come out right behind Kureha. And beside him were Jin and Sanji. The former had actually healed enough to be walking again and was caught up to speed. Meanwhile, Sanji ran himself lost in the castle until Luffy found him. But there was the problem of Chopper hiding behind Luffy's legs. Sanji, for the last time, don't cook this reindeer. Luffy, of course, ignored Wapol and scolded his cook for not controlling himself with Chopper. Jin and Kureha could only do as much as try to not pay attention to the little soap opera. Fine, fine. I have had it trying to catch that morsel, Sanji grumbled. And why are the ones who tried to eat our ship here? He shouted, still filled with irritation from his bad day. The same jerks that called themselves pirates, Sanji. Luffy said. Why not you and Jin get some exercise with the two on both sides of the tin head? As soon as Luffy said those words, Sanji ran off like a rocket while Jin sighed for only a couple of seconds, then followed after. Sanji went after Kuromarimo, who was actually kept skilled, to dodge Sanji's swift and strong strikes. But Luffy could see that Sanji was suffering. He didn't get out of that avalanche a couple of days ago unscathed. Bikuri Marimo, surprise ball seaweed, cruelly, Kuromarimo saw it too and allowed Sanji to aim his kicks for the afro-shaped boxing gloves, just in time for spikes to appear and pierce Sanji's good leg. To add insult to injury, literally, Kuromarimo used the other glove with spikes all the same to strike Sanji in the belly, causing the cook to cough up more blood and get sent back to where Kureha was standing. Why you? Sanji growled and tried to get up, ignoring the pain throughout his body. Kureha sighed and shook her head. This blonde just doesn't know when to call it quits while he still has a body that works. Dokuta Sutapu, Doctor stop, Kureha stopped Sanji by using her weight on his back and twisted it to an angle that forced Sanji's lower half to not work for a while. Now Sanji can't run off and get himself killed. Meanwhile, Jin was having more luck against Chess. His tonfas with large iron spheres attached to their ends worked just fine against Chess's arrows. Pretty soon, the jester-looking man will run out of ammo and Jin will be able to get in close enough to finish off Chess. He just wished he had bought a personal firearm from Logtown, and soon enough, he really wished it so. Don't think that I am done since that idiot blonde is out? Take this, Kuromarimo shouted and shot out many min afros at Jin, and they quickly stuck to his arms and legs. Seeing that Jin had backed off and tried to get the fuzzes off, Kuromarimo laughed. Forget it, my Aleki Marimo, electric ball seaweed, are sticking with static electricity, and there is something else you should know. Jin growled but smelled something burning. So when he turned towards Chess, he saw the jester's arrows were aflame. My Aleki Marimo are also flammable. Jin widened his eyes and couldn't do anything to stop Chess from firing them. Checkyameto, checkmate, Chess cried out, shooting those flame arrows at Jin, causing the Aleki Marimo explode all around Jin. And the man-demon wished that he wasn't already injured, then he wouldn't have fallen so easily and disgracefully. And now there is only one left. Chess turned with Kuromarimo towards Luffy but then... Hold it you guys. Both fighters turned to Wapol who actually halted them. I have been keeping my eye on that pirate. He didn't even as much as twitch to see his own stupid lackeys fall. And he gives off this thing telling me that he is much strong than any of us. Chess and Kuromarimo gasped to hear such a thing. So what do we do, sire? Kuromarimo inquired as well as Chess but Wapol asked something rather unusual. First, Chess. Wapol turned to the jester man with a notepad and writer feather in hand. What did I eat today in total? Chess looked in closely and answered. Sire, you ate 1 butter sautéed cannon, 1 cannon extra rare, a cannonball and gunpowder salad, and 1 grilled house. Those sounded disgusting but Wapol looked like he remembered a very delicious banquet. Thank you, and now, Wapol then begun to change and morph. Waporu Hausu, Wapol House. Everyone was wondering if this poor excuse for a king was being serious or a clown when he turned into something of a living house that had cannons for arms and hands. To start off, that flag is going to go. Wapol actually fired from the cannons that were his arms and aimed at the flag flying TLE. This almost sent Chopper over the edge while the others were shocked to see that Wapol will waste his power on a flag. But the cannonballs never even reached the roof of the tower that had the flag. If you want to destroy Chopper's prized position then you will have to go through me. Luffy then had the same aura from before, only visible to everyone. Kureha scowled. Chopper was worried as well as Sanji and Jin, both somehow still conscious. And the Wapol pirates were scared out of their wits. It was like they were turned into twigs and were trying to stare down a mountain about to collapse. I told you guys that he was dangerous, now brace. Wapol shouted to his 2 close warriors before chomping on them. This shocked everyone. Wapol practically committed cannibalism right in pure daylight. But when Wapol swallowed them, he acted like some kind of machine or a factory. Baku Baku Factory, Baku Baku Factory, called it. With my strength as Kuromarimo, a voice came from within the house-shaped Wapol but didn't quite sound like Kuromarimo. And my skill is Chess, that same voice appeared and it did resemble Chess a little. The suspense was nerve-killing to see what will come out of Wapol's house door that was on in the middle of his stomach. And with King Wapol's power and authority, now it sounds like the 2 characters were speaking in unison. Almost like a bad duo joke. We are, Chess Marimo. No one was impressed. Chess Marimo appears to be a large man and a combination of Chess and Kuromarimo. He has 4 thin arms, short legs and a wide-set body. He wears similar clothing to his original parts, sharing the color patterns of Chess and Kuromarimo's clothes. Not a very good act, Luffy said, matching what everyone was thinking. We are not acting, we are one being, more powerful than Chess and Kuromarimo apart, the creature shouted, we. Going against a reindeer. Luffy cut them off and that got everyone staring at him, especially Chopper. Little brother, I know that you hadn't spent the few years since I last saw you just sitting in your room reading medical books. You have been training and I want to see all of it in action. Treat this loser as a punching bag. Chopper sighed and then walked away from Luffy's legs, right up to face Chess Marimo. It is your funeral, freak. Instead of flinching, Chopper just reached in God knows where and took out a strange yellow ball. And what is that? Your favorite snack? Candy? You're just a little kid who is about to be killed. Chopper said nothing still and actually consumed the ball like it was a snack. Rumble ball. Chopper shouted and then changed into something else. Heavy point. This was Chopper's human form, which gives him a human-like appearance and height. In this form, nearly all of Chopper's reindeer physical characteristics are gone. Only Chopper's blue nose and parts of his fur remain. This form also imbues Chopper with peak human, primate, strength and agility which comes in handy in battle or otherwise. On rare occasions this form has also been used to dodge in the air by turning into this form to fall at a faster rate. Chopper remembered on how usually uses this form to try to blend in with other humans, but instead he was often mistaken for the abominable snowman. Heavy gong. Chopper charged with his massive arm towards Wapol but was met by Chessmarimo. "Don't think that we will allow a monster like you to lay your hands on King Wapol," it said, and then pulled out a pair of bows, each with burning arrows. Yukidoke no ya Marimo, snow-thawing arrow Marimo. Walk point. But Chopper was able to dodge them by transforming from a large man and into an actual reindeer. After dodging every arrow that Chessmarimo can throw at him, Chopper transformed back into his heavy point to land a hit on the fused warrior creature. But once again he was interrupted from his target by another intruder. It was Wapol getting in the way this time, to try and swallow Chopper. Jump point. Chopper shouted and almost vanished in a blur. Everyone just looked up to see that Chopper was about as tall as his heavy point but much more lean. Jumping, Chopper looked like he was flying. Luffy remarked and his two crewmates nodded somehow. Then they all focused back on the battle. Apparently, Chopper's jump point was only efficient in dodging attacks, so Chopper had to switch to something else. Dabakuri Marimo, Quattro Hammer, Super Surprise Marimo, 4 hammers. Chessmarimo had its own change in tactics and tried to land a hit on Chopper by an ambush of hammers. But while they did hit Chopper, instead of bones being broken, the reindeer more like bounced around like a ball. "Just what is wrong with that body of yours?" "The rumble ball," Chopper said, wrenching himself from the crater he made in the side of the castle. He looked like his fur had grown a pound a second so that he was a giant fuzzball, with fur that is highly packed that attacks rarely reach the main, solid body to cause damage. Through science and medicine that I learned from the doctrine, I have found a spate power. One that can affect only certain devil fruit powers, such as mine. I usually did have only 3 form, but with only a single rumble ball, I can use a total of 7. But 7 is not necessary to defeat you. Arrogant freak. Just because you turned yourself into an even greater monster, doesn't mean that you can defeat the power of this country. Chessmarimo shouted, but Chopper was as stoic as a Buddha. Then he shifted to his miniature form. "Now what are you going to do?" "Skopu, scope," Chopper shouted, placing his reindeer hooves into the shape of a firearm crosshair. To his eyes, he was scanning his opponent in an effort to find where the weak spot is. And he found it. Arm point. Kokute Roseo, carving hoof cherry blossom. Chopper then grew taller and larger, especially in his arms. Those muscles were greater than a professional weightlifter and looked like they were to burst open if they get any larger. No doubt, this is easily one of Chopper's strongest forms in his arsenal. With that in mind, it was no surprise to see that the muscular Chopper had gotten through Chessmarimo's axes and punch so hard that the imprint was deep and large, shaped almost like a sakura rose petal. It was really surprising to see that while Chessmarimo did receive a lot of damage and coughed out blood, it still didn't fall. The most that happened was that the attack only pushed Wapol and his steed behind them. No one noticed the cries of the white walkie, falling hard down the mountainside. The roar of the blizzard made sure of it. But like most battles, they can feel old when they go on too long. Luffy knew that, and also something else. "Chopper, don't hold back anymore. I know that you can better," Luffy shouted out to the reindeer. Then Chopper halted, just standing there like a sitting duck. "Huh?" Chessmarimo barfed through its pain. "You have finally realized that you stand not a chance against us. Prepare to die, monster." Dabakuri Marimo, Quattro Axe, Super Surprise Marimo, 4 axes. Chessmarimo pulled out 4 twin-sided axes and charged for Chopper, weapons aimed for the kill. But what happened next will not be forgotten by any of the witnesses. Not when 2 of the axes were blocked, not doing any damage. "You call me a monster because I am not human." A voice soon was heard, and it was somewhat like Chopper's, only more mature and deeper like a man's. "But compared to the other monsters of the Grand Line, I am actually normal. It is you who will be feared and hated, like the beasts you allowed yourselves to become." Everyone present were ranged from fully shocked to mild interest to see Chopper morph once again. But this form is nothing like the others. It was more like a combination, a Nai prefect being with all the power from Chopper's other forms. Meet another one of my strongest forms, the Master Point. End of chapter 18. Chopper was now as tall as his jump point. His legs and arms were shaggy with thick fur from the guard point, and they were ripping with muscles from the arm point. His limbs had a bare spot at each knee and elbow. But the most distinguishing feature of this new form were his horns. They were much larger and thicker, and in the strangest shape ever. They rose from up top his head and then drooped down past his back, reaching his waist. They almost looked like the blades of a sleigh or a sled. Wapol and Chessmarimo only looked at Chopper's newest form for a second before starting to laugh. Master form. Now you look more of a freak than ever. That is what happens when pathetic animals try their best to even be as grand as human beings are. Then why don't any of you even look like humans? You too are as freaks as I am. Chopper retorted in a tone that was like of a teacher, a mentor and an experienced combat master. Mature, deep and stoic. And don't even try to break my spirit, it is already broken. Then why are fighting us? Why are siding with humans? We hate you so you should hate us, go ahead. It will just get you killed. Chessmarimo shouted in pure pride and internally was outraged when Chopper's expression didn't budge an inch. It will get you killed too. You're hated here, tyrants. Don't think that you can last any longer in the Grand Line with just each other. What happens when one of you falls, leaving the other to fend for themselves? Chopper simply said. I know all this because Luffy and the Doctrine saved my life. They saved many lives and they taught me how to do the same. They even taught me how to make friends. Perhaps you could use some lessons yourself. Friends are just luggage that the strong have to carry. Why should we fight for an ungrateful kingdom? We run to survive so we can return and rule them, but they try to kill us. Chessmarimo looked like it snapped, turned mad. Of course they want to kill you. You call yourself rightful rulers until 5 pirates came. 5 pirates forced you and all your power to flee instead of fight. You chose to act like rats on a sinking ship. Chopper argued back. And do you see this island in more ruin than when you left it to its fate? The people were doing just fine without a ruler. They recovered without a leader. And they fought even without a general. You are neither, you are nothing to this island and its people. You are monsters, hated and unwanted. You're just like me. No, shut up. Chessmarimo started to rant as its subconscious fought with its pride and irrationality over the topic. Take comfort that once you die, everyone on this island will die next. Chessmarimo charged, its 4 axes flailing around, as if rubber trees in a strong wind. Chopper then raised one of his transformed, enhanced arm in a manner of readying a sword. When every single one of Chessmarimo's axes were inches above him, that arm suddenly turned charcoal black with a shine. And, just as swift, Chopper slashed at the axe's infused warrior itself. All 4 of the weapons were destroyed and Chessmarimo was sent back with a gash on its torso. Kill everyone? What about the tin tyrant right behind you? Are you going to kill him too? Chopper smirked to see that the tables have turned. He was taunting his enemy this time and Chessmarimo was actually intimidated for once. And he should be, since that fused creature is finally paying the prince for its empty threats and severe underestimating of the enemies it made today. Too bad. And I was actually impressed to see you take in my arm point. Kokute Roseo, carving hoof, cherry blossom, boulders and forests were never enough to do the same. Chessmarimo was struggling to even keep standing with the gash stinging with the snowflakes touching the fresh wound and the cold wind licked past. Only his anger that a puny reindeer freak was pushing him around so easily. But if you like that move, then you will love this one. Master point. Chopper suddenly blurred from simply walking over to the wounded Chessmarimo. A punch to the fist was soon to be felt, followed by a kick to the opposite side and then a jab to the chin. Kokute Haruichiban, carving hoof springs storm. Chopper moved around with the speed, dexterity and reflexes of a professional boxer, and each of his punches were as strong as cannons and his kicks were like those of a martial artist. Once he was done, Chessmarimo was a mess. Covered in bruises and cuts, from Chopper's horns without a doubt. The only thing messier than Chessmarimo was the snowbank he was still standing on. But when Chopper finished his combo, he halted and just stood still in front of his messed up opponent. He said nothing, his friends behind him didn't say a word. But Wapol didn't even have an ounce of that patience shown. Chessmarimo, what the hell are doing? Waiting for more, kill them or I will. But his fused warrior was still irresponsive as ever. Move and kill them. Wapol just tapped on Chessmarimo and caused it to land hard ahead on the snow. Chessmarimo. Good work, Chopper. Did it like a real man and a real pirate. Wapol got out of his shock to see that Chopper was still in his master form, but Luffy was by his side. Now it is time that we finished this idiotic king. After all, what's stopping him from running again and eating his own men to transform into even more of a freak? XXXXX. Meanwhile, will you hurry it up? Usopp shouted to a villager who was about to poop out, trying to drive a railcar filled to the brim with passengers up the highest of the Drum Rockies. They should have placed more than one engine for these things. Then you take over, anything better than complaining. Kuro grumbled until his sharp mind perked when he saw Usopp's excited smirk. Wait. Never mind. Kuro may have been out of action for a while, but both he and the other Straw Hats knew that Usopp was a real prodigy and a natural in terms of speed and endurance during Luffy's rigorous training exercises. If Usopp was pedaling, the railcar will turn into a race car for sure. Whatever. One strained voice ended that scene in an instant. And everyone turned to the only person on board that can have such a broken tongue. Thanks for all this, everyone. Dalton whispered out. Sure, that his wounds were properly sealed up and he was brought back from the edge of freezing to death. Dalton wasn't in prime shape. Not even close. Who knows how much he can take before collapsing again. Dalton's recovery in a hurry was possible by a positive development. He was treated by Wapol's former League of Doctors that he tried to abandon in the wake of the avalanche before it, mysteriously, disappeared. The ISSHI-20. The ISSHI-20 were the 20 most skilled doctors on Drum Island, whom Wapol took for himself in order to make his subjects dependent on him for their services. They were met with hostility like the other soldiers from Wapol's ship, but the ISSHI-20 confessed that they only went along to help others behind Wapol's back. Now that the spoiled so-called king had discarded them, the ISSHI-20 is now free to use their skills without fear anymore. Listen. Dalton got everyone off memory lane for the time being. Once we get to the castle, do as you wish but leave Wapol to me. I failed to stop him in Bighorn, but he has nowhere to run from the ruins of his castle. This time, I will not lose him. I will finish him and all this once and for all. And just how are going to do that? Zoro grumbled. He sure wasn't the most patient passenger. But he soon regretted saying that when Dalton just pulled out a long roll of dynamite from under his coat. Wait, you don't mean? I have learned this years ago and only realized back below, my friends. It is either that we both live or die. If Wapol is not going to get his stupidity cured, then there is no reason for him or me to live. Dalton said all that with a straight face, with words of a madman. The Straw Hats had no idea if they should try to talk him out of it or just let an honorable man take his fate like he is preparing for. Dalton willing to face his eventual death in order to spare his home of its greatest tyrant and traitor. At least everyone will no longer be abandoned to ruin and destruction. XXXXX. Back in the castle. What the hell? Wapol was in disbelief once again. While he was able to use the snowfall and snowbanks to hide from his enemies and later get past into the castle, he wasn't happy with its current state. What happened to my beloved castle? Why is there snow and ice everywhere? Who is letting in the wind? But Wapol soon forgotten about complaining when he saw one of the few doors that wasn't frozen over open slightly. And out of it was a certain orange-haired girl that was supposed to be in bed. Maybe it was that she didn't have a fever anymore and felt like moving around. I can't stand just sleeping around any longer. And with all the racket out there, I need to see what is going on. Nami though to herself, not seeing Wapol a floor down from her, until... Hey, who are you? And what are you doing in my castle? Nami heard that plenty and almost thought to be Kureha. When she saw a short fat man with metal all over him, Nami tried to fool him. Nothing. I am just someone who was just checking out this castle and stay warm. I will now leave you and your castle, so good day. The girl tried her best to look convincing and with a straight face while she was at it. Nami had hoped this will do the trick until she saw Wapol climb up to her level when she made only a couple of steps up the stairs. Liar! Wapol shouted and chased after Nami, who cried that she hadn't gotten away with her intrusion like always. But the chase was short-lived, and fortunate for Nami since she used a stair right in the floor downwards. And when Wapol tried it, his grift had prevented him from even fitting. Maybe I had been missing exercise for a little bit. That sure was an understatement and rather ignorant. I guess that I have no choice, to eat myself. Nami was horrified to see Wapol actually engulfed his whole body in his oversized metal jaw. And turned into a hopping metal can, that still chased after Nami. "Just what the hell are you, freak?" Nami screamed. She didn't know what was scarier, a man eating himself or a tall tin can to be hopping after her. But then the can turned itself inside out. "Behold my true self, without any excessive weight or bone." That voice was Wapol's for sure, but he sure looked different. Suramuapu Waporu, slim up Wapol. He was slim alright. He was even taller than Nami. His grit was gone and his entire body was not fat the least. "And now, come here." "No." Nami was sure scared and tried to get back to fleeing, but Wapol actually caught up, many times faster than before. But before Wapol could do anything to her, he was sent away with a mean kick of a sandal. "Hands off Nami." The navigator was relieved and happy to see her captain, her boyfriend, her hero saving her again. "I knew that you will want to get into the castle when you gave us the slip. But whatever, why are you out of bed? The cold air will make your fever return." "I'm fine and I didn't want to be left out of the action," Nami said softly. "Just who is he?" Luffy sneered when Nami had to bring Wapol up. "A nobody, a slippery one that is good at running away." Luffy answered and Nami hugged him in order to calm him down. But when his frown begun to flatline, the good mood was ruined when. Enough of the soap opera. Wapol had recovered from that sucker punch, or kick, and pointed at a door that was at the base of the support pillar that held the staircase. "See that? That is the storeroom for every weapon in my kingdom's arsenal. Once I get in and eat every single one, I will become so strong that you won't beat me commoners." But Luffy knew that those were empty threats, and was right when Wapol realized that he couldn't open the door. It was locked and he no longer had the key to it. "Want me to open it by caving in the door with your head?" Luffy did his own threatening and Wapol fled up the stairs. That was when Jin and Chopper finally appeared. Nami recognized the former but not the latter, who was still in his master form. "Chopper, he is running to his ultimate weapon, which is instead a dead end. So, you are with me." Chopper nodded with Luffy turning to his crew. "Nami, this is an order, go back to bed. Jin, lock the doors and make sure she stays at least in that room." "Right, Captain." Jin was eager to follow Luffy's orders but had to wait for Nami's response. Then she gave it in a voice that only Luffy heard. "Yes, dear." Nami then walked back over to the patient room with Jin behind her, but she teased her boyfriend a bit by sticking around her chest and jingled something for him to see, with a grin on her face. "What a naughty girl, I will have to punish her later," Luffy smirked. "Let's go, Chopper." They both disappeared up the stairs in a blur. XXXXX later, "Ha!" Usopp shouted when he came out of the opening from the rail car, head first and with his rifle out. He scouted around, seeing nothing but snow in the castle. "Weird," he stated to himself. "Okay, all clear out here." "Then give us a hand. He is heavy," Usopp sighed. Zoro just wasn't the type to give at least a "thank you." Usopp said nothing and helped both Zoro and Kuro move Dalton up to the base level of the castle. "Now where is this tin jerk?" On another island, the Straw Hats tensed and drew their weapon when the snow in front of them burst apart. Thankfully, it was just Luffy. "Where did you fall from, Luffy? Did we miss all the action?" Usopp asked and Luffy smirked. "We made sure that Wapol won't be able to find his way back to this island again. You can take care of him." Luffy pointed to the beaten chest Marimo, which hadn't budged an inch in all the while. "And don't ask, really guys." Thankfully no one did, no matter how tempting it was. "Is he really gone?" Dalton asked, desperately. He was feeling like his conscience was slipping when his body was relaxing. He could have sworn to hear that Wapol was off the island again. "If you are going to hit me for stealing your thunder, then go ahead," Luffy answered, but Dalton just sighed in relief before finally falling to the ground, with a smile this time. "And sorry if you wanted more action. Thanks for brining Dalton up here. We need someone like him to decide the next king." "And everyone else up here?" Kuro asked and Luffy shrugged. "Let's go and find out." Luffy led the way for the Straw Hats into the castle while the rest of the villagers dealt with both Dalton and the fused freaky warrior. Once inside, Kureha marched around like a mother with two misbehaving children hiding from their bath time. "Nami is out of her bed?" "Oh kid." Kureha turned over with a scowl that intimidated the Straw Hats a little before noticing that her expression lifted a little to see their captain. "No, your girlfriend is where she belongs, but she has the nerve to try and bargain her way out of her minimum rest time." Kureha grumbled and Luffy nodded. "It is her style, but the important thing is that she is in bed. But what about Jin and Sanji? Are they in treatment? Luffy said, and Kureha looked furious as before, thankfully not at the Straw Hats. I wish. Those boys are pussies compared to how you were. I just can't find them anywhere in the castle. And another thing. Kureha stopped her rant when she felt Luffy press on her shoulder. I will find Sanji. Just tell me that he goes to the machine room. He deserves that much. Luffy remarked, and when Kureha smirked like a sadist, he did the same and blurred down one of the halls. I should feel like I trained him too good, but I am too proud to be that soft. Kureha muttered to herself and then turned to the Straw Hats. They were terrified as to what to do with the witch, without their captain to calm her down. If you have time to stare, then help me find that zombie boy so I can fucking treat him. Move it. Yes, madam. XXXXX. That same evening, the castle was busy and filled with moans and grill by Sanji and Jin in the machine room that was filled with torture machines that Kureha had improved to be used for patients that try to run out on their treatment, to make sure they can't run away anymore. And while everyone was working on restocking their supplies for Aileen, Nami was in a more pleasant and less painful treatment, sleeping in her bed. But she wasn't alone, she had Chopper keep her company. Luffy came to this island years ago. That is how you two know each other? I thought that Luffy had spent all his life in the East Blue. He said, before he had to go, that Big Brother had to keep it a secret. Something about big trouble if it was found out too soon. Chopper replied, relaxing on his chair. And that is all I know until I sensed Big Brother on his ship with a soul in pain. I knew that he was coming, but it was sure great to see Big Brother again. So how exactly did it happen? Nami asked, and before Chopper could point out, I am sorry for bringing up bad memories, but I wish to understand my captain and boyfriend a little more. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone else. Chopper was still silent, and when Nami was about to change her mind, okay. Just this once. Nami listened in. Flashback begins. It was around 9 years ago. Why? A little reindeer cried and was screaming internally to see itself standing on 2 feet, with a child-shaped head and its hind hoofs more like hands. I thought that fruit was strange. Now I look more like a freak. It was in a clearing and with a herd of reindeer nearby, that had looks of disgust and horror on their faces. There was a female reindeer slightly closer but backed off with a harsh look as well. Mother. No. Stay back, monster. You are no child of mine. That mother reindeer barked back with hostility. But the small creature still tried to approach its mother. Keep away from me, freak. You killed my son and now you are a monster. You are not my son. No, mother, don't leave me. Please. The creature still cried out, but was then launched back cruelly by the antlers of one of the male reindeer of the herd. OWW. We have tolerated your presence for far too long. We even allowed you to even follow us and eat with us. But all this so you can become a monster and kill us. This one was definitely the alpha male as the rest of the herd ganged up on the creature. Kill it. The creature screamed and braced for more pain when instead, it felt the arms of a being without fur. Or at least not natural fur. Looking up, the creature saw what it didn't recognize. He stood up too, but didn't have any fur or hooves. The only fur was on his head, and it was black like the ravens that stare at the creature on some nights. Its fur was of other strange colors with something on its 2 feet. But the creature can see that this being was glaring at the herd while protecting him for some reason. I hear the sounds of a young animal in trouble, and I guess that I was right. And with enough time to stop you from killing one of your own. The being shouted at the herd in a strange language, but somehow, the creature and the reindeer herd understand him anyways. Human, the ones that search and kill us for our fur as clothing and our antlers as trophies. The alpha barked, and the creature now understood what this being was. But why did this, human, save him despite what the alpha said? If you are here for us, then scram. You can't take us all out at once. I didn't come to kill any of you. But I am especially angry at you, the alpha and her. The human then shouted and shocked the herd and the creature in his arms. It was like the human understood them. So asleep to the rest of you. The human then shouted and stared hard at the majority of the herd, that soon fell to the snow. They were knocked out and the human didn't even touch them. You humans are devils, like I thought so. The alpha was angry that his herd was done in so easily and charged for the human. The creature screamed and tried to hide in the human's clothing, but still let one eye open to see what was going to happen. But instead of being attacked, the creature saw the alpha sent to the ground by the human with only a stroke of his free arm. I haven't got much in terms of grudges against you, Alpha. So, I can't waste much time on you. The human sneered at the alpha that could only lay down in pain with blood on his face. The creature was no stranger to the red liquid that come out of its cuts and sometimes, its busies. Speaking of whom, the creature was wondering where the human was walking to, taking him along. It is you that I want. The creature realized that this human not only saved him, knocked out the herd, defeated the alpha so easily but also was going to stick up for it in the face of the mother reindeer that tried to run away from it. I don't know how you can understand us human, but you demons always side with each other. Just leave me be and take that monster with you. I didn't ask you what you think of Chopper. The creature and the mother reindeer wondered where that name came from but didn't have the chance to think on it. But I am not leaving without giving you your punishment. Now you are acting like my judge. You humans just love having all that power and arrogance to yourself. You don't know anything about me, the mother reindeer shouted off, scaring the little creature. Not that she noticed or cared. I know enough that you committed the worst sin a mother could do. You gave birth to your son but regret him for what? A blue nose? The creature realized that in the short moments it had after eating that strange fruit, it forgot that it was its blue nose that caused a lifetime of neglect and loneliness. So what? He is still your child and you wanted to kill him? I don't need to know more to punish you, and if I don't then no one else will. The creature gasped at that proclamation. The one that warmed its heart somehow. And what are you going to do? Kill me? Strip my fur off for your rug, on your floor? You all? Do your worst. The mother reindeer was now mad with anger. And the creature was wondering why the human looked like he was going to enjoy the punishment, given the size of his smirk. Sure. Watch closely. The human then placed half of the small things on his hand, on the place above his eyes. Then came a voice that the creature or the mother reindeer will never forget. Everyone that dwells and lives on the island and makes their home within its woods and snow. Listen to what I have to share with you. A mother has tried to get a reindeer herd to kill her own reindeer son. I ask that you will understand how unforgivable the sin is and never accept her into your herds or homes. She will never be a mother again and will never find another mate for the rest of her life. Promise me this on behalf of this young one that had to suffer so. So be it, the one that can speak with the winds. That was clear and loud like the blizzard's roars. The deed has been done and the creature will be spared. And its former mother will be alone until the day she falls dead. The animal herself, the one that her home won't accept anymore, just sat there in the snow. All she ever saw was the human and her former son walk off down the base of the mountains. She will never see them again. Her wish granted with a twist. Meanwhile, the creature will be given the name Chopper for how his antlers look like they can chop wood. And as for the human, he will be later called Monkey D, Straw Hat, Liberglade, Luffy. Before they will depart, Luffy and Chopper will become sworn brothers with dreams and the determination to go for them. Chopper wants to be the best he could be, maybe even be a doctor. Flashback ends. Once Chopper was done, Nami opened her arms. She didn't care if Chopper refused or not. He needed a hug. And he did see what Nami had in mind. Because he ran into her embrace, trying to avoid her bust, and cried once he felt her smooth arms on her fur. It was a sad scene, but it somehow made Nami feel like a mother or at least a big sister. With a little Broda's luck and needs support. Something to cry on where hopefully no one will see. Chopper never stopped crying, but when he heard Nami gasp, smell a certain lingering alcohol scent and felt rough but strong arms around his body, he really let the waterfalls out. Even with all the tears clouding his sight, Chopper saw the familiar hat and raven hair. There was no mistake to it. Chopper not only had his big brother holding him but a big sister as well. It was the second best present that was given to the little reindeer who had to suffer much. It has been a few days since Wapple dared to return to the island of eternal snow. I still think that it was reckless of you walking through a forest during a blizzard, and what were you thinking of climbing this goddamn mountain? The Straw Hats moaned and groaned. It was like they heard it for the 1000th time. It was Ace, trying his best to get this rant into Luffy's head. Ace, you are overreacting. I had Nami on back, sick and only several hours before dying. There wasn't the time to wait for the doctor coming, so the best option was going to the doctor. I also had 2 of my crewmates with me, so there was no real danger. Luffy grumbled out. Too bad that Sanji and Jin were still in the machine room, so they couldn't hear that. to feel a little appreciated as Dr. Kureha treated them. I can't believe that the captain had an older brother, and I have heard of him. Kuro said from his comfortable spot, on a chair with his legs bending and sitting on the toes of his feet. Fire Fist, Ace, 2nd Division Commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. He is on the crew of a Yonko, 4 Emperors, a pirate lord that is leagues above the Shichibukai, 7 Warlords of the Sea, as they are above the average level pirate that sails the Grand Line. Kuro brought in great detail, and with a grim tone. He grinned to see that most of the straw hats in the room were reacting like he predicted. Some are terrified at the thought while others were more interested in their new friend. Luffy did mention something like that. Zoro spoke up. Back in the town of the Cactus Mountains, while you all were sleeping in that party room, I had a drink with the captain and his girl. As for what were they doing up, I rather not say. Zoro dropped off momentarily to see if Luffy was aware of what he was saying. Thankfully it was just a mild glare, to say more about it, or more punishment. What did Luffy say? Usopp said, trying to get his nerves down. We are going against one crocodile, and is this Shichibukai pirate anything like Mihawk? Usopp felt proud with himself, talking about something so sensitive with a person like Zoro. He said that crocodile is a good example of a Shichibukai, but he used a really ridiculous name and compared that with Mihawk. Zoro actually answered without a hitch. He said that both of those pirates can be considered equal in power. His audience was already mind blown, especially after seeing the raw power that Mihawk used to overwhelm Zoro and in that stalemate against Luffy. But the Yonko and his grandfather consider them to be like children to their power. That is how powerful they are. I am starting to see the picture with the Yonko, but who actually is the captain's grandfather and why is it significant? Kuro started until he was cut off. Garp. Luffy's grandfather is Monkey D. Garp. Zoro said, and this sparked more interest and uneasiness in the room's atmosphere. Come to think of it, I even encountered that old man. He screams of real raw power that even Luffy is an ant compared to a dog. No one doubted Zoro, especially with a serious face like his, and no one said another word. But still, Luffy, Ace was relentless to say the least. Ace, please, we don't need a worse headache listening to you for another 1,000 times. Nami said as she was still in bed. Kureha made sure of it. Besides, you can relax since this is the day that the doctor promised to release me. Luffy won't be walking through blizzards or climbing any mountains soon. Not that I don't mind being on his back again. Nami had this dreamily look on her face while Luffy only blushed slightly and coughed in his hand. Ace answered only with a disappointed sigh and shaking his head in disbelief. Your girl is as bad as you are. Ace soon wished that he whispered much softer when he suddenly felt a rapier poking him in the neck. Not that it is a bad thing. Nami is my navigator as well as my girl, so yes, there is nothing wrong with that. Luffy said with an edge in his tone. So if you still have something to say about us, as the big brother, then say it. We have all day. To everyone in the room, it was hard to see who is the real big brother. Luffy's certainty knows how to get his point across, and Ace is supposedly 3 years older than the straw-hatted captain. One thing is for sure, those two have just redefined the term. Just then, come back here brat, and with those two, they haven't finished healing yet. That practically shook the entire castle, including the patient room where the straw hats and brother to the captain were waiting in. Luffy then got up and opened one of the doors, just in time for Chopper in his reindeer form to crash through. With Sanji and Jin thrown off his back, sliding right into the other side of the room. After promptly closing it, Luffy turned to Chopper. I can guess how she took your decision, Chopper. But did you really have to go overboard by getting these two idiots out of their healing machines? Luffy asked, ignoring the mutters from the blonde cook and man-demon saying that it wasn't. Luffy, we all need to go. The doctrine is on a rampage and I have no idea why. Chopper then ran off, trying to sound frantic realistically. But the pirates felt like humoring the reindeer by taking their words seriously. Hurry. Luffy, do you mind? My shoes have been stolen. Nami felt like being a drama queen and just wanted to be on her boyfriend's shoulders again. The captain didn't comply. Luffy was willing to be a slave to all but her needs. So where are we going, darling? Luffy took no notice of the teasing and answered in a serious tone. I think I have a good idea. Chopper's running away from Drum Island. XXXXX. Meanwhile, Where is that stupid reindeer? Kureha was on a rampage alright, and with about 100 weapons strapped to her back. Swords, guns, spears, clubs, etc. I never taught him to disobey my word, and especially to run off with 2 stupid kids that haven't been healed yet. What kind of doctor does he think he is? Perhaps one that wants to go for his dream. Kureha then turned over to Dalton, still healing himself but is good enough to walk and stand the cold climate outside the castle. And I did notice that your sled is not in your shed like always. Running away, on my watch. Never. Kureha then shouted off and sprinted off towards the main exit of the castle, leaving behind the pile of weapons behind. Also, she left Dalton with a grin on his face. I know that the sled is gone because I saw it being dragged to the back door. Dalton shook his head that he inheritably tricked Kureha into a wild goose chase and just went off to his own plans. But while no one was looking, Kureha had actually settled in her office after disregarding all that extra baggage. Chopper, you really are leaving. I never thought that in my 110 years as a doctor that I will feel this way for someone sailing away, not passing away. You brat and your stupid big brother had actually made me soft, and I will never forget that day. Flashback begins. You want me to do what? Kureha looked barely any different, but it was only a few years compared to her lifestyle extending a century. And she was looking at oddest part she had seen, which is saying something for how diverse and bizarre the world can be when it came to bringing 2 individuals together. Please doctor. Chopper needs someone to take him in. I will be sailing with my teacher all the way to the new world. My little brother will be in great danger. Luffy was still in his training years and apparently, he had been to Drum Island before. Meanwhile, Chopper looked worse to wear. It was like the little reindeer had went through hell and back, only to get a rude and painful welcoming. Luffy heard everything about what happened while his teacher was stationed on the island. It seemed that the quack doctor that made his living off of bad healing and stealing money had made Chopper his companion and looked after the young reindeer. But the doctor did all this since he was dying if he was planning to die as someone that no one will miss. He will be in his dark little corner, all alone like he always was. But Chopper had changed his view on living. Then came that fateful day when Chopper had finally decided to repay the doctor for taking care of him. He will get a certain mushroom that the doctor said that he need, after completing a miracle that the doctor had tried for 30 years. That was while Chopper was beaten to a pulp, rugged down and even lost one of his antlers. But this was the start of a great tragedy in Chopper's life. Because what Chopper didn't realize, in all his innocence and childish view on reality, was that getting the mushroom and feeding it to his caretaker actually doomed the quack doctor. That mushroom was poisonous, killing the eater within an hour. And all Chopper had to say was that he saw the skull and crossbones next to the picture of it in a medicine book. And after this doctor said the symbol wasn't danger but the will to conquer the odds, to find a cure when help was never given. Luffy sensed this and spent a good several hours consulting Chopper, who seemed to never run out of tears. Then came the quack doctor's death, drinking a liquid explosive that blew himself up in front of a certain metal tyrant and formerly his castle. It was foolhardy that this quack doctor fell into an obvious trap, but no coward will end his life to leave something behind for the witnesses. That is why Luffy decided to up his training with his teacher and also convinced Chopper to give his life to learn medicine and how to be a doctor, to help and cure others no matter how sick they are. But Chopper will need a new caretaker and a teacher for real this time, which brings the duo to the witch doctor herself. Brat, why would I take in a blue-nosed reindeer that walks and talks and got that quack killed? Kureha was stubborn and so was Luffy. Because he went out like a man and you have enough honor to do what his dying wish was. Luffy retorted. I know that he asked you to take care of Chopper and he is going to be a doctor, so that's why. You don't know anything about me or that quack. You are just a brat with a reindeer in your arms that is just about to die. Why aren't you asking me to at least heal him? Kureha argued back, and then Luffy got serious. If you give a man a fish, he will eat for a day. If you teach him how to fish, he will eat for life. Luffy quoted out of the blue. So, teach him how to be a doctor. You don't get to decide the fate of this reindeer. You're just a brat. Kureha was surprised that Luffy had the guts to keep the argument going. Most men were too scared to even argue back. Besides, this creature might learn medicine, but he was the one who poisoned that quack to death. And he was dying from an incurable disease in the first place. No, Chopper then got out of Luffy's grasp and shouted into Kureha's chest. An incurable illness didn't kill him. It wasn't bullets, or bombs, or poison, it was that no one will remember him. But I do, and he didn't die. Chopper shouted out what Kureha could have sworn to hear that old fool again. I will be a doctor and I will cure everyone who is sick, because there is no such thing as an incurable disease. Flashback ends. Once Kureha had finished her little memory trek, there was a knock on her door. Dr. Kureha? We are ready and waiting. We still need your call. Kureha smirked at the sound of the townspeople that she had been pushing around sounding so excited. Wiping her tears, Kureha got her bearings together and answered the door. Then you will get my call when it is due. Now show me what you brats have finally finished. The elderly doctor had a reputation to uphold and yet her visitors wouldn't have it any other way. XXXXX as if for the brats themselves, Chopper had pulled it off. He actually found the king's gourd on his own. It was exactly like Luffy told him, so the reindeer was confident that he was going the right way. Your ship is so cool, big brother. Luffy chuckled. It was cute as ever to see Chopper react that way. And he is supposed to be the age of a human teenager but still with the heart of a child. Thankfully he had the mind and knowledge of a real doctor. No more winging it for the Straw Hats. Well, come on then, we are burning sunlight by just standing here, Luffy said, carrying his comfortable girlfriend still. Everyone else got out of the sled, with Sanji and Jin still out of commission to walk but not to complain about being held like a sack of potatoes. Say, what did we miss? Luffy then talked while looking down at the otter who stayed behind with Zoro and Kuro before they decided to come along to the castle. Everyone almost forgotten about him. He says that it has been quiet except for the commotion he can hear clearly on the top of the biggest mountain. Chopper suddenly said, and the otter looked up in awe and shock. Chopper, thankfully, noticed that soon enough. Yes, I used to be an animal until I ate this fruit that allowed me to speak human but understand both. I hope we can be good friends. The otter then did something that no one could even picture. From under his tough exterior and sunglasses, the otter cried out in tears and hugged Chopper. The reindeer sure was surprised but did what Luffy always did for him. Returned the favor and also the hug. It wasn't too heartbreaking, but who can deny the sight of creature finally revealing a side of being hurt and shunned for who knows how long. After that surprise moment, the Straw Hats went back to work on the ship, to get it ready to disembark off the island. They did pick a good time since the log pose was now pointing to a direction other than at Drum Island. It was just another matter of time that the log pose will restart again and the Straw Hats will lose sight of the next island. Of course, they didn't have any time for detours and can only hope that the log pose is pointing a lot like the eternal pose that was savaged back on Little Garden. Wow, the guys were right. You are a good artist. Usopp did his work and decided to try at drawing and painting, using the landscape and the mountains on the island as the model. I am amazed. Yokogao. 1. The otter nodded and went back to work. Usopp shrugged the response of indifference and continued his own art before he loses sight of his model. Elsewhere on the ship, you are a doctor? Chopper was sorting out his little blue backpack with everything a doctor will need when outside the office and patient room. Once he did that, most of the crew were surprised once again today. Yeah, I was the one that helped the doctrine heal Big Brother, Big Sister and those two idiots. Chopper responded with a childish innocent tone that made all but Jin and Sanji awe at the cute sight. Jin huffed while Sanji glared at the reindeer, threatening to make Chopper back up meat within his mind. But how exactly did you get the old lady to let you go? Ace asked, still having his cloak on for some reason. And everyone felt the urge to gush at Chopper, who just openly blushed and looked nervous before answering. Well, flashback begins. Hey Chopper. The reindeer was sneaking around but flinched to hear the loud sound of his second caretaker and teacher in medicine. He silently scolded himself for thinking so lightly of Dr. Kureha. That woman is one of kind, all right. Where the hell do you think you're going? Don't you have herbs to crush, machines to maintain, needles to clean, and selves to sort out? Maybe you do, because I am leaving, Chopper shouted out while not very convincing in his tone. And I mean it. I promised Big Brother that when I got strong enough to beat Wapple, I will go on adventures with him. Must we go through this crap again? Kureha had a short fuse that just set off a chain reaction explosion. That brat nearly got himself killed on this mountain. All for a couple of idiots and a girl who couldn't wear her clothes in a jungle. He is not worth it. He is AD. Chopper felt that was ridiculous, but Kureha actually went of trivia. He then noticed her smirk. He is AD too, huh? Just like with that big-time brat who got himself executed, that reckless fool Gold D. Roger, Kureha thought to herself. Okay, I will take it back about the mountain climbing, but he still is a bad influence. I may have taught everything I know about medicine, but you still haven't got the experience yet to be a real doctor. You are still a child. I know, Chopper argued. I am thankful for taking care of me and teaching me medicine, but I have a dream and I can't achieve it if I stayed. Big Brother is going to sail with me to help me find the cure for all illnesses and diseases. I keep telling you, ungrateful brat, that there is no such thing, Kureha retorted. I still can't believe that I let myself take you in after that fool speech and you actually spilling your guts about an impossible dream. Big Brother doesn't care and neither should I. But I want to see what the world have to offer. I want to learn more about medicine and become an even better doctor, Chopper fired back. Big Brother has an impossible dream, but he is going for it, so I should too. I want to be a man and I want to sail. If you are not going to change your mind, Kureha found it no use to play it safe with words, but with the rough way left to do. Then I will have to drag you to the machine room and nail you to my wall. Hey, come back. And just like that, Kureha will chase Chopper throughout the castle until the reindeer will reach the patient room, with an old lady on the hunt for blood and with 100 weapons to do it. Flashback ends. The little reindeer was about to go on until Luffy's arm stretched to pull Chopper from his backpack. You don't want to miss this, Chopper. It is about to begin. Chopper could have asked what his big brother meant when the whole crew saw it for themselves. The cloud above the mountains and white land of Drum Island used to be cold and merciless white. But then something was fired off the biggest mountain, from the castle on top. It was like a large rocket or firework cracker. But when it exploded, what was in that cloud was not fireworks. It coated the large cloud and the sakura petal pink. Your teacher and guardian seemed to want you gone, Chopper. But that was so you can start sailing and see this before you go. Luffy then said, she really is an amazing woman, don't you think? I personally can't think of a better present for my little brother. Chopper was amazed and tear-stricken. The sky above Drum Island was not the usual white clouds filled with snow to fall. Instead, it was the sakura flower petals that a great man said to be a very effective cure. And it healed the last hole in Chopper's heart. 398. A day on the seas started with a curious sight. A reindeer, doing push-ups, with a small pile of wooden crates on his back, while looking more like an tanuki. 399,400. Good work, Chopper. The reindeer finally lost feeling in his legs and fell to the deck. Thankfully that the weights didn't go down so roughly. A man's hand went right under and stopped them. And it only took 2 hours this time. You're getting it. Thanks, big brother, but how am I going to do what you guys do? Chopper had been struggling to get on his bottom with his legs and arms acting like jelly sticks. 400 is still the most I could do. How to get a higher exercise? Simple. Convince me to punish you. Luffy was the one overlooking Chopper's early morning exercise and answered with a twisted smirk on his face. Chopper then cover his mouth and eat his words without anyone seeing. Until then you will have to make do. Now to get the feeling back in your legs. Luffy pressed Chopper on the chest with a certain touch to his pointer finger. Chopper grimaced a little since Luffy's touch felt slightly more painful than a static shock. It was more like a small needle puncture that got the little reindeer to get all his energy back. We just had breakfast and we have a while before lunch. Why not we go fishing? Fishing? Yeah. Chopper loved to spend time with Luffy, no matter how boring it looked to the other pirates. And when they got their gear, got on the railings, with Luffy's helping hand of course, they released their lines with bait on both hooks. After a short while it was nothing except for a few small but doable fish. Nothing to show off to your friends. Luffy knows well enough that fishing isn't something to bring your girlfriend to. That will just end it all right there. But then came the tornado from the kitchen that ruined their peaceful existence. Who ate all the food. Luffy and Chopper did a quick look at each other. Thankfully there wasn't a single crumb on their cheeks, so they were in the clear. But they then heard a couple of hearts beating fast, on their right. I mean you too, who ate all the food. Sanji still walked up to his captain and newly appointed doctor. He was too angry to listen to his conscience saying to forget about it. Try those 3, Sanji. At least we aren't so nervous that you can hear drums out of our chests," Luffy said with indifference, and Chopper looked to his right. It was Usopp and Karoo the large duck trying to fish themselves, but they had either a piece of bread or a raw streak in their mouths. Chopper then saw Sanji march over to the suspiciously fishing duo and spared his eyes from any nasty carnage that came with the sound of shoes meeting heads. As for you two, Sanji then turned away from punishing the food thieves and saw that Chopper had a big bite and Luffy was helping him. "Since I don't have anything to work with, let me help." "Whatever, Sanji, we can't let this catch get away," Luffy answered with indifference. The cook grabbed the captain like he is grabbing Chopper, around the chest. After several hard tugs, the trio knew that their catch was losing strength and it was only a matter of time before it was on the king's gourd. Except for one problem. Their catch wasn't edible. "Oh, thank you. I fell off my ship in a cloud of stupid, silly smoke. And I am a fellow who can't swim." The two men and reindeer didn't know what to make of this, but this character was so loud and dressed painfully poor. It got all hands on deck. I haven't told you my name. It is Bon Curé. Nice to meet you all kind pirates." Bon Curé is a relatively tall male cross-dresser who wears flamboyant ballet clothes with a swan theme. He dresses in a pink overcoat and blue medieval clothes. He wears heavy makeup and he often sports a distinct wide grin which often carries over when he changes his appearance. His legs, being exposed, are hairy. Underneath these clothes, his physique is fairly muscular. The number 2 is seen in the form of his swans, which are posed into a shape resembling the number 2. The back of his overcoat bears the kanji for Bon Festival. "What gave us away that we're pirates?" Luffy made the first question and the strange man just pointed up towards the sails and flag. "Good point. So, do you not know how to swim or that I ate an Akuma no Mi, devil fruit? Those are the only ways for a harmless person like myself sinks like a cut loose anchor." Bon Curé answered with a cheery attitude that was as bad as his dress. "In this case, I did eat one. Allow me to show you." Bon Curé then shot his hand out fast and enough force to send poor Usopp, who was in the range of fire, to be sent through wall. This got the crew on guard until they saw it. Hold it, I am not attacking, just demonstrating." That wasn't the strange man's voice at all, nor was his face. It was all Usopp's. "What the hell?" Everyone shouted out and Bon Curé laughed using Usopp's voice in a creepy fashion. "Do I look like that silly-looking fellow with the ridiculous nose? This is my power? The power of the cane no Mi. Clone fruit." Bon Curé laughed even harder than before. "All I have to do is make contact with a person using my right hand and I can completely copy them while always needing a change in clothes. Meanwhile, with my left hand," the impersonator of Usopp moved his left hand to his cheek and reverted back to normal. "I change into my real form." Luffy decided that it was harmless for now and allowed the cross-dressing devil fruit user to touch almost everyone. Sanji kicked away Bon Curé's hand, Kaya was defended by Usopp, Ace moved out of the way and Vivi hid behind Luffy. "Now do you see?" Bon Curé then touched his cheek with his right hand again, changing into Zoro. "Now that," then he did Luffy. "I have my right hand, now Chopper has memorized your faces." He then went to Kuro. "I change my face into every single one." Finally, he became Nami. And this time, Luffy's nerves were on edge. That was his instincts and they never were wrong. "And that is same for my bod R." Bon Curé had set Luffy off when he reached of his coat, still impersonating Nami, and earned a rightful punch to the cheek that sandwiched both him, Luffy's fist and the mast of the king's gourd. We get the point and none of that about Nami and especially in front of my little brother. Luffy soon released his fist to grasp Bon Curé's face. "Understand?" Bon Curé muttered and tried to nod his head while it was still in Luffy's grip. "Good, and Nami dear, handle the other pervert please." Luffy pointed to a certain blonde on board that was hoping to see what Bon Curé will reveal about the navigator. Instead, the sound of a head harshly bonked and a door closed almost to the point of falling off. "Now then, is that all you can do? Have we seen all the faces?" Bon Curé recovered from his rude but necessarily honorable interruption to press his right hand on his cheek. "Not at all, see the rest of my collection," and thankfully, all he did was swipe and switch his faces to insignificant men. But there was just one face that sent Vivi over the edge and Luffy spotted it too. It was the one of a middle-aged man that gave off the atmosphere of being some kind of high authority figure, especially with the black sharp beard, in the shape of a straight hook. "Sir, there you are." Bon Curé stopped his display to see a rather flamboyant ship, fitting of his need to copy others in cross-dressing. Built with a swan theme, the ship had a swan's head and was white in color. Another feature were hand-operated paddle wheels. Its size is similar to the Going Merry. It has Okama Way written on the sail, as well as on the ship itself. "It's my friends and our ride to where we desperately need to be, the Swanda Express." Bon Curé got excited and hopped onto the railings, but he did turn over to the Straw Hats. "Thanks again for fishing me out. I hope that we will meet again as real friends." And just like that, the Okama crossdresser had disappeared Aoking ship. But while the crew was glad to get rid of him, Luffy and Vivi weren't so sure. The captain himself, especially when he heard one of those sailors call Bon Curé Mr. 2 Feet. "XXXXX, pardon me Ace-san." Vivi walked up to Ace once an island of sand and sand winds was in sight. "Shouldn't you take that cloak off? Not that you will get sunstroke, but too much covers in the desert will get you heatstroke." Vivi then noticed that Ace didn't look so worried. "Thanks for the concern, princess." Ace was told everything about this big mess of the Alabasta Kingdom that is centered around Vivi. "But I assure you that I am not a man to get neither. Heat and sunlight can't harm me in any way. It is just how I am." "Okay then, half of us will go looking for clothes suited for the weather here while we see how much water we can afford here in this town." Luffy then said. "I will take Usopp, Kuro and Ace along while everyone else goes to the market. Don't let any perverts do the choosing, no matter how much it looks on you. We are going to trek a desert, not ride on a parade." The crew straightened and fled, leaving the ones Luffy chose behind. This of course made Ace chuckle nervously. He sure didn't act according to the third strongest pirate in the Whitebeard pirate crew. "You still have that touch, huh?" Ace retained that shaken tone and Luffy just shrugged. "It's one way to keep them together, and I am sure that any woman in my crew is good enough to handle themselves." Luffy responded casually. "Now let's get going." Later, SSH, Luffy shushed his crewmates and accompanying older brother who were each carrying a barrel of water. Kuro and Ace were no surprise. Usopp was the one who was proud of himself for showing real, manly, strength for the first time. Luffy's training is hell but effective. "What is asterisk? Asterisk?" The sniper in question was about to ask his captain until it hit him too. Kuro made the same twitch in his throat and face while Ace didn't say a word about it. Two signatures were heading their way along with a mess of lower ones. And these were no stranger to them either. "Looks like Smoker finally got permission to leave Logatown to come after us. Thinking that he is the successor to the role my grandpa had against Roger." Luffy answered, with that second sentence under his breath. "But if they are here, that means the Marines have gotten word of what Crocodile is doing in this land." "But how?" Usopp tried to ask once again, but Kuro stopped him. "The Marines are not all moral and good like they want us to think. My best guess is that they heard about everything by wiretapping," Kuro explained, showing that he is still a genius but not for devious and plans for money anymore. "The Marines have access to a special Den Mushi, transponder snail. That is small and black. It can intercept the wavelengths between two regular Den Mushi. I have found this out years ago, and that is how I decided to not use such technology again. The risk was too great for a pirate to try. So, if they are here then they will even attempt to capture us. And trouble with the Marines will just delay us even further from getting to the center brain of Baroque works." Luffy said. "Let's go." And when they were starting to run, Straw Hat, Luffy cursed that they were found out anyways. "Don't think that you can hide after how your crew were spotted. We might as well get you first." Luffy was just glad to see no deception in that remark. Not one of his crewmates had been taken in yet. But he was still true to his word. "Let's go guys. We've overstayed our welcome here." Kuro and Usopp agreed and got a head start towards the King's Gourd. Luffy and Ace soon followed after them. But once the ship was in sight, Ace stopped and turned towards the incoming Marines. "Hold it, Luffy," Ace suddenly said, grasping the straw-hatted pirate by the shoulder, facing Smoker and getting a lot of eyes to face their way. "I've heard about you beating Smoker before in the East Blue." Ace continued and didn't even turn away from the oncoming Marines. "Now it is my turn to have some fun. I've learned a few things here in the Grand Line. And I can't with this thing on. Ace finally tugged at his cloak, and threw it off to show his real appearance. Although they were not blood-related, Ace did look remarkably like Luffy. However, Ace looked of the age 3 years older and more mature than his younger brother. He also sported rather childish freckles. But Ace's most remarkable feature was his tattoo. Ace had it on his upper left bicep that spells ASCE, vertically. He wore black boots, black knee-length shorts with an eyelet-studded orange belt, and a blue pouch belted around his left leg. He also wore a short second belt with a large red A on the silver buckle over his right hip, but left it unfastened and threaded the free end along the back of his shorts. A dagger in a green sheath hung at his left hip. On Ace's left arm, he wore a log pose and a red and white striped bracelet around his wrist, an orange elbow guard, and his ASCE tattoo. He wore a red beaded necklace and an orange hat with 2 blue smileys, one frowning and one smiling, and a string of red beads sitting above the rim. 2 long orange side straps hung down sides of his hat and met at a large medallion of a bull's skull with orange tassels. Fire Fist, Smoker growled. If you are here then I will have to arrest you too. Hoedo Buro, White Blow, Smoker shot out a trail of smoke to both attack and immobilize not only Luffy but his cloaked brother. Kagero, Sun Flare, Ace shouted out and out of his hand came a burst of flames that stopped the Hoedo Buro from reaching Smoker's targets. This shocked most of those witnessing this conflict, except for a select few. So, you did eat a fruit and now who is going to save us from drowning Ace? Luffy remarked very casually. Of course, they couldn't think of a much more obvious moniker, can't they? Ace then looked submissive again and acted like a kid with his hand in the cookie jar. Yes Luffy. You got me. I discovered and ate the Mera Mera no Mi. Flame fruit. This explained a lot about Ace, the lack of snow on the winter island of Drum and that Ace saying he can't get heatstroke earlier. In Jomo, Flame Fence. This time, Ace swiped one of his arms across and conjured up a circle of flames around the Marines. That will hold for a few hours, plenty of time to get back on track, Ace replied, sensing what his younger brother and his crew were about to say. Now I need to get going because I still have a mission to do by the old man. Oh, Whitebeard eh? Luffy answered. Then can you deal with those ships out there? Their signatures are giving me a headache here. Luffy pointed back on the harbor where a long line of ships with the symbol for Baroque works on their sails. Ace didn't say a word, he just moved in a blur and jumped off the pier. Thankfully he showed that he attached his sailing vehicle to the King's Gourd. The one that he called the Striker. The Striker is a waterproof, one-man, yellow raft shaped like a half-crescent. It has an engine in the back, 2 paddle wheels on the sides, and a small sail in the back. Everything is linked to the main seat in the middle of the raft. This was shown when Ace turned his feet into flames that turned the propeller engine fast enough to move to one end of the armada of enemy ships. Not a problem, Ace said to himself and charged for the Baroque Works ships, only to jump high above the sails while the Striker delved underneath. Once Ace moved to the other end, the Striker appeared and caught Ace before the pirate commander made his move. Heiken, Fire Fist. Ace sent out a giant-sized flow of fire that plowed through the armada easily. If this doesn't impress you, little brother, then I will love to fight you again. Fire Fist Ace then disappeared to who knows where, doing only he knows what. But Luffy just couldn't shake the feeling that his older brother was walking to his doom. XXXXX, remember everyone. We will go this way until the sight. Vivi said once they were getting suited up to head from the port of Nanohana, where they docked at, through the desert to stop at the little town of Yuba. Then head to where Crocodile's base was. The capital of the Sandy Kingdom, Alubarna. We do have enough water for the trek so we should restock in Yuba. And you guys should know that since I am sure Nami didn't let Sanji chose the clothes for the crew. Luffy said responded with a huff. He was a guy who will hold a grudge once his crew disobeyed his word. But Luffy, while I can't deny that Nami, Vivi, Alvida, Kaya, Grace and Carol are mature women. Cue the blushing women. Even desert dancers wear heavy clothing. I don't want them getting burns because you didn't think of that, genius. Now cue the remaining Straw Hats nodding. If only Sanji wasn't just a shameless pervert, he will actually get pity. And if he wasn't a good cook or a strong fighter, he would have been left behind. Another thing to remember, you guys. Zoro then said. No doubt that copying Crossdresser is going to be our enemy if he works for Crocodile. But even if they do figure out how we can tell each other apart, he still won't fool any of you. This time, no one argued or glared. Just looked at the white cloth on their left arms. This was more than a way to stick out in a crowd or fool the world's best impersonator. It was something else entirely. Something that will bond them forever. Hot, the Straw Hats groaned. Not only because they feel it, but they have to hear that complaint for the 1000th time since they started to travel through the desert. And they already had gotten on to a bad start with the Kung Fu dugongs. That type of dugongs has evolved and passed down fighting prowess that closely matches actual Kung Fu fighters. And they even that his still code of honor, that if they should lose to any fighter, they must learn from the victor. Luffy actually defeated them all, so they didn't have to waste any more time after Usopp lost with a narrow defeat. They all begged for the captain to train them, expect Luffy talked them out of it by saying he will train them once they find and destroy any of the minions of Baroque works named Millions and Billions. It helped that Ace had purposely let one of the sails from those ships he blew up so that the Kung Fu dugongs were able to follow the scent like bloodhounds, even under the sea. They were able to find a town, named Aramalu, but there was no chance to even get out of the hot sun there. It was ravaged by the encroaching sea and the extended drought. Vivi knew this town since she was born in Alabasta. But no sandstorm or natural drought can cause the damage to the town that they found. Vivi could only say, dance power. She explained on the way out of the Aramalu town that dance powder is a substance created years ago, in an entirely different region. One that had no rain at all during any season or month of the year. When the people, with their knowledge of the weather and chemistry, begun to create dance powder. It was supposed to force clouds above the land to sprinkle rain and solve all the drought problems. But there was something terrible about dance powder, which soon made the substance illegal in the Grand Line. The problem with dance powder is that it doesn't create water or rain as the creators have thought. They soon learned, from another different region, that rainstorms stopped falling there once they started using dance powder. After some testing, the creators were horrified to find that dance powder actually steals rain from one area and sends it where the substance has been used. Some say that the land was ruled by a king who received negative press from his people and those of the land that lost their rain for his own. That was why he decided to ban the use of dance powder, have it destroyed and finally moved to where it rains naturally. But like with narcotics and other illegal substances, dance powder only became an item to buy in the black market, and soon made its way to Alabasta. Vivi said that she has been reading of Alabasta receiving rain in one section while the other is forced to suffer a sudden drought. The only answer was that Baroque works, under the rule and word of Crocodile, have been using dance powder illegally while convincing the people it was orders from her father, the current king of Alabasta. She had hoped to infiltrate the ranks in order to find the shipment of dance powder and prevent Baroque works from using it to cause a false civil war. And for a criminal under the government's blessing, aka Crocodile, when Alabasta does start that civil war, it will mean that everyone will want their nation hero to take the king's place. Vivi wishes to stop all this from happening, with the Straw Hats' help. XXXXX. Now the rest of the trek was difficult since there were dangers more than the lack of water in sight and the merciless sun basking down on them. There were Warasagi birds, trying to steal their belongings only to end up as meat for the next meal. The desert strawberries, poisonous spiders until Luffy drained them of their venom. And then there was the great Sandora lizard that was in the middle of eating its prey. Luffy used one of his sword techniques to both subdue and poison the great Sandora lizard's innards that were otherwise inedible. And then there was the beast's prey. A creature that said, according to Chopper, to be grateful to Luffy for the rescue. Too bad that he said he will give rides, only to women. Luffy wasn't pleased with that ungratefulness and neither did the other male Straw Hats. They all had their fun insulting the perverted animal when Nami kindly asked to name it. Moron. Idiot. Pervert. Little ironic, even hypocritical coming from a certain blonde cook. Stupid animal. Bastard. Nami got a free ride and called him the best name she can think of. Eyelashes. Not quite better than an insult like Luffy and his fellow men came up with. The captain just poked the ungrateful animal with something that made it more afraid of the pirates than anything, especially looking at the women with hearts in place of eyes. Eyelashes is a light brown camel who wears a bridle and saddle. His saddle is square-shaped, with a fur seat. Under the seat is a purple blanket, with a yellow stripe with an orange diamond pattern on it. There is also a silver seat with an orange cloth on it. Eyelashes has noticeable eyelashes on the bottom of his eyes, which he is named after. Thankfully, this camel named Eyelashes didn't do anything funny with Nami and Vivi, and especially with the other women who decided to keep walking. This satisfied Luffy a little, while Sanji just kept glaring at the camel for carrying the women when it should be him. Good thing that it seemed to only be a walk's trek to finally reach Yuba, only to see that the town was deserted like the last one. This time, there was no sand built over so that they can at least use the abandoned houses. Then there was the only resident of the town, who was digging through the sand without even paying attention to the Straw Hats. The pirates were clueless to who he is, but Vivi knew him perfectly. That only made her worry even worse. "Toto, what happened to you?" Vivi was aghast and was pale like a ghost to behold this digging man in the middle of the Yuba town. Originally, as Vivi knew him, Toto was a relatively fat but healthy-looking old man. However, due to the 3-year drought brought about by Crocodile's scheme, Toto's body definitely and completely shriveled up from thirst and starvation to a point that he no longer resembled his former self. He has an elderly-looking face, and a thick fuzzy mustache. He wears a white wrap around his head, and another gray wrap around his forehead. He wears black robes, that are torn in some places, and a green robe underneath with a dark red lining. Under that, he wears a vertically striped black and white shirt. He also has a turquoise sash, with blue dots. Toto said that while everyone, including his son, left the town when a freak sandstorm hit Yuba and drained all life from it. But he was stubborn and looked for water, even if it means that he will dig for days without stopping. Then the Straw Hats told him about the previous town being dry from not only a sandstorm but also a drought, which made Toto look like he suddenly lost more life than weight. Crocodile is doing this for sure. I heard that one town had found a cart with bags filled with dance powder, pulled by suspicious people. They said they were going to deliver it to the king until the wheel broke off and the powder was spilled for all to see, Toto said, and Vivi was sweating up a storm. But while that town is losing faith in the king, I will never turn my back to him. He said both me and my son, so my lifelong loyalty to him will stand, even through Crocodile's storms. This was a hint as to Crocodile's power, which is supposed to make him nigh invincible and undefeatable by regular pirates, especially those from the Blue Seas. But that only meant the Straw Hats have to find Crocodile soon, before that criminal mastermind causes another drought and series of false doubt in the king's rule. XXXXX. Toto waved them goodbye until both he and Yuba were out of sight. Doubt that he is going to keep digging for more underground water. And as long as Crocodile is doing as he pleases, he will be doing it forever. That was why Vivi wants to stop the Shichibukai, Sea Warlord, but no, I quit. Luffy then stopped, sat down and got comfortable. When nobody said anything, I mean it. I am not going to the rebels. If they are going to get themselves killed because they also believed what bullshit that is Crocodile, then it is not my problem anymore. But they are going to get killed. My friends have joined the rebels and Crocodile will kill them, Vivi retorted. I just want to meet up with them and stop this war from happening. Nobody is going to die. Yes, they are. Luffy grimly argued. It is either by the sun or the sand here in Alabasta. They all are going to die. So why aren't you showing us the way to the real problem? The fact that the rebels are going against my father's soldiers is the real problem. Why don't you see it that way? Vivi was persistent and Luffy was stubborn, shaking his head in disagreement. Are you sure this is just you and your subconscious wanting to do the opposite of what a certain tyrant did without a second thought? You just don't want to look in a mirror and see Wapol as your reflection. Luffy then said, which caused something to snap in Vivi's mind, which caused her to whip out and strike Luffy on the cheek. You jerk! How dare you say such a thing? I am thinking of my people and my friends here, Vivi shouted, punching Luffy over and over again. But she knew that it was useless to try and knock Luffy out with just punches. They weren't even leaving bruises and smidges on his face. Then think about us. Luffy then shouted through the weak beatdown and used his legs to send Vivi off of him and back a couple of feet. Sanji almost lost it to try and stop Luffy from rough playing with Vivi. But his fear of the captain soon got his ego to win against his ID, so the cook stayed in one place. You're the one dragging us in this stupid war expecting no one to die. That is naive and stupid. Vivi growled before trying to get up. That double kick to the stomach came out of nowhere, so she was a little dizzy and wobbly. I am? You're strong. You can stop armies with just a glance. I know from your crewmates. Vivi wondered why Luffy turned over to his crew, glaring something fierce, and told them that they are to be punished for something. They all looked rather sheepish. Surely you can handle a couple of armies. Then what am I to you? Luffy argued. I am not a friend when you just want my power to knock out those rebels and soldiers. That won't stop Crocodile. Only make things worse. It can even send you and your father to jail by just being seen with someone like me. Am I your friend? Yes, you are. Why are you asking? Vivi was getting a little exhausted from so much verbal trauma from the captain. Don't you want what is best for me, your friend? I want that for all my friends, and I am not going to send them to fight an entire country just for a friend. That is not the way to stop a war. Luffy then answered, but a little softer. Trust me. I have been in a war and my instincts were telling me this. The way to stop a war too is to focus on what or who started the war. In this case, Crocodile. Vivi gasped, and before she could comment. Yes, I want to beat up Crocodile for what he already done to your home. Once he is done, so will be Baroque works, and then you can try to stop everyone from killing each other. Then the war will truly end once it just begun. Everyone was silent, and then, through a glint of the sun's rays into their captain's eyes, saw that he had seen the horrors of war. All those people who died, killed off and slain in the most horrible ways just so the side with the most numbers left will win the war. And that either side doesn't care about the casualties, just to get what they wanted, which was denied and caused them to start wars over. So, Luffy then said, walking over to where Vivi had been sitting and thinking about how a child she has been about the war. He gave her his hand. Where is Crocodile? Soon enough, and without any more marines to watch out for, Luffy found himself standing in front of what was known as Rain Dinner's casino in the city of Rainbase. The exterior of the building is shaped like a large pyramid. There is a golden crocodile head at the top and is patterned in blue and gold. Crocodile is here. I knew how to tell as soon as I contacted him on Little Garden. Luffy then said, and the Straw Hats said nothing. They just waited for their captain's orders. They need to decide on how to stop Baroque works once they find out what is going on in the sandy kingdom of Alabasta. Entering the casino, the Straw Hats were bombarded by a large room filled assortments of gambling, drinking and roulette machines. It is hard to believe that a casino like this will be going strong. Vivi, you told us that your kingdom is poor because of the incoming civil war. Luffy whispered to the princess, who had to resort wearing a thicker cloak to prevent any of the Alabastra residents from recognizing her. If they do, then it is major trouble for both her and the Straw Hats. It must be Crocodile and the dealings he does in the underworld through the Baroque works agents. Vivi whispered back bitterly. She was the princess of this country, and now she is forced to watch as Alabastra actually benefit from a crooked Shichibuki warlord doing illegal dealings on her native soil. Of course, Vivi felt a warm and firm grasp on her hand. She felt her friend consulting her in the midst of enemy territory. So can you hone onto Crocodile? Luffy was focused while holding Vivi's hand. He couldn't have forgotten Crocodile's signature now. He needed to find out where the Shichibuki was, within the casino. It seemed to be coming from beneath the lobby. If only Luffy was able to find where the passenger way down. But the pirate captain didn't even have time to think when, Mugiwara, Straw Hat. It was Smoker, still on a dead man purse, and at a time like this. Run! Luffy shouted, not caring anymore of the attention this was giving him. Smoker had sold them out to all the customers, staff and possible agents in an instant. They then saw some of the men in uniforms showing a hallway breaking off into two opposite directions. In the middle was a sign that pointed the left to be the VIP. Forget it and go the other way, Luffy shouted, and he went right accordingly. But his crew just didn't listen and followed the sign anyways, with Smoker following close behind. Luffy let out a sigh of disbelief, looking down that way, which stank of a trap. Oh, this is so not happening. XXXXX later. I hope you are happy, Smoker. Luffy said with the muscles in his forehead twitching in frustration. Because of your prescient and annoying chasing, we were found out way too soon. And I couldn't keep my crew from taking the wrong hallway, and now I am trapped in her with you. Kidnapping, my ass. The reason for Luffy's foul mood was that when he chased after his crew, being chased by Smoker, they all ended up in cage underneath the casino. It was a large room, big enough for conferences and maybe even rich parties. That was to be said about the decor that was complete with windows showing a large amount of water, almost like an aquarium. This was the trap that Luffy knew was there, but in an act of karma, it didn't make a difference. "Shut it, Mugiwara. You know perfectly well that as a Marine, my duty is to arrest pirates on the spot. Nobody told you to run," Smoker grumbled very loudly, trying to get comfortable on the floor of the cell. "And you should be trying to think of a way out. It's bad enough that the cell bars are made of kairoseki, sea stone." "Kairoseki?" Chopper asked while trying to figure out why his instincts are telling him to avoid the cell bars as well. Luffy answered. "Never mind the idiot Smoker, but he is right to be up a tree with kairoseki." Chopper peered in while everyone snickered at the Marine captain, trying his best not to lash out. "You remember that as an Akuma no Mi, devil fruit, eater, we can't swim anymore and the sea is our enemy?" Chopper nodded. "Kairoseki is a mineral that can best described as the sea in solid form. Like seawater can weaken us and make it difficult for us to use our powers. Kairoseki has the same effects. The world government loved to make handcuffs out of this stuff for the dangerous Akuma no Mi users." Chopper had the look of a boy who was told his new pet rock was made of lava or something. The little reindeer fleed away from the bars and behind Luffy's legs. "They are not radioactive or giving off flumes, Chopper. As long as you don't touch them in any way, the kairoseki are harmless." Chopper nodded but still stayed hidden, or at least a part of his face, that is. The little doctor saw that everyone noticed and moved to hide most his body. Then a door, at the top of a flight of stairs, opened to let in two figures. The prisoners soon recognized them as soon as the figures moved into eyesight. It was Miss Sunday from when she appeared at Whiskey Peak, along with can only be her mysterious partner and overall boss of this criminal organization. "So, we finally get to meet the man himself. The Shichibuki that is just a desert wearing a stoner's skin and stolen fancy clothing. How's that for a first impression?" Luffy couldn't help but insult the warlord on their very first meeting. Crocodile is a tall man with a wide chest, broad shoulders, muscular arms and legs, and a thick neck. He has pale skin and nape-length black hair which is kept neatly slicked back, though strands tend to fall in front of his face during battles. Crocodile has various battle wounds, most notably a long stitched scar at the bridge of his nose that stretches across his face and a large hook made from a tough gold alloy in place of his left hand. His eyes are deep-set and heavy-lidded, and his thin eyebrows seen upward in the middle. This gives his usual facial expression a feeling of condescension and distrust. Crocodile speaks with a deep, relaxed voice, and he is usually seen smoking a thick cigar produced by his company. His theme of dress is meant to convey the image of an Italian mafia boss. Crocodile wore a bright orange, black striped button-up vest over a long-sleeved peach shirt, along with a blue scarf, dark brown suit pants, and polished black shoes with gold buckles. He also wore a long, thick, dark pelted fur coat over his shoulders. "It is either that you are arrogant or just plain stupid to say such bullshit when you are just waiting to die," Crocodile said. "And I thought that you said on the Den Den Mushi, transponder snail, that I will face my downfall once you arrived here in this barren wasteland of an island." From behind him, Miss Sunday watched silently, since she also was expecting more of the super rookie from the East Blue. It was almost comical after how she was kind enough to make their journey easier by avoiding Little Garden. It was a pleasant surprise that the Straw Hat Pirates were able to escape that jungle of an island. Then Crocodile said, "I am surprised that Mr. 3 didn't kill you or that idiot didn't." This confused her, and Crocodile didn't sound like he was making this up for the sake of taunting the pirates plus Marine Captain. "But boss, you said," Miss Sunday was about to speak up, when she remembered on how strange Crocodile acted after Luffy hung up on him. She still wasn't sure of what happened. "Who said you can butt in? You have nothing to say after what you did at Whiskey Peak, along with your nerve to tell us where to go." Luffy sneered at Miss Sunday, somehow causing her to swallow any words she wanted to say. "I sure didn't ask for your option, Miss Sunday. So, shut it." Crocodile was either aware or not that he actually agreed with Luffy rather than getting Crocodile comfy with his captured prey. "Now then, bring in the princess. She needs to see this." And Vivi found herself, while out of the cage, a prisoner herself in the clutches of Crocodile. I am warning you, Crocodile. If you harm her in any way. Luffy growled out while the Shichibuki paid no heed to. Well, Princess. Thought that you can find out who was in charge of Baroque works by having the nerve to become one of my agents, only to try and sell me out? Crocodile asked sadistically. Vivi couldn't speak in front of such a powerful and influential figure. She heard tales and even saw his power, the definition of what she calls invincible. Then again, words won't free Vivi from the rope bounds keeping her in the seat staring down the table covered in rich and expensive food. Every crumble on a plate and every drop in a glass was from Crocodile benefiting off in countless crimes committed on her homeland. It was like all this food was laughing at her for being so foolish and childish. That no matter what Vivi does, Crocodile will get richer and soon he will get what he wants out of Alabastra. If you have nothing to say then you will, Crocodile spoke in an ominous tone before appearing right in front of the cage, grabbing Luffy by the throat hard. After your foolish captain dies, Crocodile tugged at Luffy, slamming the rookie's head against the kairoseki bars. Immediately, the sound of a neck snapping was heard. Luffy, Nami screamed the hardest out of everyone and tried to will herself to hold her boyfriend's limp body. Yet something didn't add up with this picture, and it actually made Nami feel relieved somehow. Well, what do you have to say now? Crocodile sadistically asked the princess, but there was no time for an answer when the Shichibuki noticed that the boy he was torturing wasn't leaking blood from his mouth. Instead of blood, out came some kind of slime that burned at his hand. What the hell? Crocodile roared like a wild animal who got his hand covered in fire and released Luffy, only for the figure to remain lying on the kairoseki bars. Only for Luffy to morph into some kind of melting mold of the stuff that caused the kairoseki to sizzle and melt. Aruabata, Ale Avatar. A voice from the shadows got everyone's attention. Now what did my creation ever done to be locked up in a cell and slammed into its bars? Crocodile was the only one with a jaw not on the floor. His was gritting in frustration and anger. Oh well, Aruabata-kun bought me more than enough time to fiddle around with your pad and he did give your prey a way out. I think he did good, will you agree? You, how? Crocodile shouted, trying to get his breath back, and Luffy answers with a just shrug. Well, I was the one torn in the middle and no way out of a couple of terrible decisions. I had to do some inside digging for a way to get the upside on you. Luffy trailed off. Flashback begins. Storeroom, where do they keep it around here? Luffy asked himself during the time he was torn between going after his crew and deliberating walking into a trap that he had hoped to avoid. The only solution to get out between this rock and this hard place is for Luffy to find where the casino stores all the wine and sake ready for the wealthy customers feeling like getting drunk. Then Luffy found a plain wooden door that had the unmistaken smell of a winery. Don't mind if I do. Luffy hummed to himself as he opened the doors to see barrel upon barrel of wine, liquor, sake and beverages of the highest quality alcohol. Perfect. Flashback ends. You can fill in the rest. I just had to make sure you won't know until the right time. Why do you think I was stupid to fall for a glaringly oblivious trap? Luffy then glared at his crewmates who felt a little guilty and sheepish. For your punishment, one agent for each of you, alone. Luffy finished there without arguments and instead with laughter from a certain pirate wearing a king's robe. You talk like I am just going to let you go, but while you can escape, the princess dies here. Crocodile hurried to strike Vivi with his golden hook, but his attack was blocked by another Luffy, complete with a copy of the original Luffy's rapier. You are too predictable, Crocodile, Luffy said calmly, not budging from his spot. And you love your winery a little too much. I just helped myself to place a few more Aruabata. As soon as the pirate captain finished off, Crocodile found himself surrounded by Luffy's Aruabata. Suburusu, sables, Crocodile summoned a sandstorm that blew away the Aruabata and even caused them to revert back to bundles of wine. But then it all changed direction in midair, as if they were being sucked into something. It was a wine bottle that Luffy had in hand, almost like when a certain man returned a genie back to its lamp. Luffy promptly capped that bottle, rather used the standard wine cork. Now that wasn't nice. I spent a good few minutes assembling and sculpting them to look good. It was a pain to hide most of them in the time I had to spare. The pirate captain mocked Crocodile, making the Shichibuki slightly more pissed. I will shut you up. Desato Supata, Desert Spada, Crocodile angled his hand to face Luffy and it transformed into a sand blade, shooting out to strike the captain. And yet it moved rather slow to Luffy's standards, allowing him to reach for the dinner table. He took it and threw it up in the air to be a shield, blocking the Desato Supata. Predictable, stupid and now slow. Soon everyone will call me the Shichibuki, not you. Luffy made another mockery, hopping above the table and out of reach of the Desato Supata. I will make you drown those words in my sands, Crocodile growled at this embarrassment. Just how hard is it to kill this rookie? Suburusu, Crocodile caused his sands to form into another miniature sandstorm and shot it at Luffy. The super rookie just took out his rapier. Sake ga suppai. Sake turned sour. Luffy amazed his audience by striking the Suburusu with a supersonic stab that had high air pressure increasing its power. Not only was the Suburusu destroyed but also the entire dinner table, freeing Vivi from his binds in the process. And before Crocodile or Miss Sunday could respond to this development, the princess had vanished from the ruined dinner table. Okay guys. Luffy's voice brought attention to the top of the cage. That was where Luffy was standing, with Vivi secure and safe in his arms. You can get a lighter punishment if you get Vivi got out of here and to her next destination. I may even take out a couple of agents if there isn't a single bruise on her. Sounds good? It was an amusing sight to say the least, with the Straw Hat Pirates acting more like naughty little children receiving an ultimatum regarding their punishments. And like little children, they just nod and responded with, "Yes, Captain." Then get going. Vivi was dropped down to the level of the cage gently, and into Chopper's arms as part of his human form. All while Luffy's eyes didn't stir away from his two enemies. You two might want to scram, Miss Sunday. I hate for you to drown in this stuffy room like we are. Luffy's words almost set Crocodile off, like turning a switch back to, on, what hell are you doing Miss Sunday? Make sure that the princess doesn't make it back to Alubarna. The mysterious woman with the fedora just couldn't make out how this rookie was able to change the circumstances into his favor and practically treat all this like a game. Just what kind of man are you, Mugiwara? With that and more thoughts in mind, Miss Sunday took her time while the Straw Hat Pirates flee with the princess, until they were out of sight. Now there was only Luffy and Crocodile left in the underground room. Why send your crew away? Are you afraid that they will see your demise if otherwise? Crocodile tried to mock his enemy until a sickening cracking sound was to be heard, followed by the sound of rushing water. The Shichibuki turned to the glass of his large aquarium, filled with his pet reptiles that share his namesake. Speaking of which, there was a shard from the cage bars embedded in the glass, starting a chain reaction of cracking with a few leaks. But before Crocodile could respond, the glass immediately shattered and enough water to follow a town soon filled the room. The Shichibuki finally cemented the fact that he ate an Akuma no Mi when he acted like the water was acid to him. And Luffy was perfectly safe while on top the cage. What the hell Mugiwara? It was bad enough you robbed me of the princess, ruining expense bearing for the cage, and now you are trying to drown yourself or something. Crocodile couldn't get his own rafting for the rapidly rising water. He was forced to use his powers to somehow levitate with his powers over sand. Fine then. Eat him, my pets. Crocodile shouted off for his bananas that have bananas growing from the top of their heads. Yet, the water within the room suddenly turned red with blood. Followed after were the bodies of the creatures that could only be Crocodile's bananawani. Crocodile couldn't believe that they were slain in the beat of an eye. And to add insult to injury, salt to the wounds, Luffy jumped off the top of the cage and casually hopped on the corpses like in hopscotch. Let's just say, Luffy spoke in a whisper, landing another one of the floating bananawani corpses. Then the air had gotten heavy and Crocodile felt a shiver up his spine as Luffy went on. When I get pissed off and hot under the collar. The Shichibuki noticed that Luffy turned pink and steam was rising from various spots on his body. I become a real devil. At the very presence of this new Luffy was enough to make Crocodile sweat through his thick clothing. He just didn't know it was from the heat of the room or fear. Damn you Mugiwara. Crocodile cursed at his body refusing to move and his voice not leaving his mouth. I do hope that Luffy-kun will get out, Nami muttered as her eyes were still glued to the front door of the casino. It was no longer bursting with high-paying customers or the sounds of slot machines handled from left to right. When the Straw Hats fled the underground room, They scared the customers since they were pirates. And while the business had fled, the Straw Hats couldn't bear moving another step away from their captain, still inside. Meanwhile, they met up with Sanji, Kaya and Alvida. It seemed that not everyone set off Crocodile's trap while Luffy purposively walked in for his crew's sake. These three had got separated and found each other outside the casino, told by the real Luffy in secret to wait for when the others will run out free. And this time, Sanji stayed good and kept a good watch out for Alvida and Kaya rather than flirt with them shameless. Then they came. Where is Captain Smoker? The Straw Hats turned to a squadron of Marines, led temporarily by the second-in-command Tashigi. The pirates then realized that not only did their captain stay behind but Smoker never fled with them. But before any one of them could respond, the ceiling of the casino exploded like an erupting volcano that was followed by Yata Atami no Tabi, Journey of Drunken Pain. That was a loud and clear voice that most of the witnesses recognized. Of course, they had to see the casino cut in half and a flood of water gushing out both sides. Then, look, up there, one of the Marines happened to glance in that direction and pointed out a figure or two airborne. Then the two figures started to sprint around in midair, a lot like a bee until they both landed right in front of the pirates and Marines. Phew, for once I am glad that there is all this sand. Anything will beat that nightmare. It was Luffy, slightly soaked, with his rapier still out in hand and with Smoker carried underneath his other arm. The Marine wasn't worse for wear, and he was twitching so Smoker was still alive. Captain. Both groups called out for the pair and were about to run towards each of them until Luffy released Smoker and blocked a jab from the said Marine with his rapier. Mugiwara, Straw Hat. Why the hell did you save me? I am your enemy, Smoker snarled at Luffy, a little lacking in gratitude. For a moment, the pirate captain said nothing. He remembered that Smoker didn't leave the room, no doubt readying to arrest both Luffy and Crocodile. But instead the room was flooded with both Luffy and Crocodile going at each other's throats. Smoker could have drowned because of his annoying inability to swim. Smoker, Luffy finally spoke, some call you stubborn and stupid. I call you a man with his mind straight and brave enough to go for it. Smoker couldn't make out this answer. Some say that you too dumb to quit. I think that you are prescient enough to change. Yeah? What kind of shit are you trying to pull here, pirate? Smoker responded and Luffy never let his grin up, slightly infuriating the Marine captain. What I am saying is that you are a good man, Smoker. I don't mind one bit to help you against the common enemy now and in the future. Luffy answered and Smoker gritted his teeth at the compliment. He even found his arm lowering his weapon, much to his chagrin and the other Marines. You are a man that I won't mind sharing some secrets I learned. One of these will help you preserve millions of lives. Are you willing to hear it? In return my crew and I go after Crocodile and Baroque Works? Smoker thought hard on it. Luffy still saved his life, so as a man, the Marine owes the pirate a favor. He placed his weapon aside, ignoring his squadron's complaints and objections. It better be good, Mugiwara. Luffy immediately walked up to Smoker, confident that the Marine won't try anything. The pirate captain then whispered a few words that nobody else was able to make out. Whatever it was, the severity of it was enough to make Smoker widen his eyes in horror. This better not be some bullshit you are shitting, Mugiwara. I am the worst liar in the world, Smoker. I wasn't even able to talk my way of snatching a piece of meat if it meant my life. So yes, it is true. Luffy responded loud and clear. Then he cut off to see what Smoker will do next. For this once, the Marine captain spoke up, you and your crew will walk away. The Marines were tempted to object and the Straw Hats were the same to jump in joy. But never expect this to happen again, understand? I do, Smoker. I trust a man like you to do the right thing. Luffy said. Guys, we are going after Baroque Works and get Vivi to stop the upcoming war. Let's scram. Luffy gave his orders and the Straw Hat pirates fled with the princess still in company. The Marines were forced by their captain's compromise to let them go. But Captain, one of the Marines tried to reason with Smoker but he swallowed his words when the intimidating man glared back. Quit your bellyaching and make a call for reinforcements. Smoker shouted at that particular Marine who hurried to contact headquarters, getting himself ready for one hell of a scolding. The rest of you are coming with me to Alubarna. Move your asses. Smoker gave more orders and set off towards the city in a slightly different direction. XXXXX. So, what did you say to the Marine, Luffy? And why did you send Chopper off? Nami asked her captain. They checked in with Kuro, Jin and Yokogao. They were still on patrol, guarding their ship. The other Straw Hats had met up again shortly. And yet Luffy ordered Chopper off on a certain street once they were out of sight to the Marines. I simply told Smoker what I learned about Baroque Works' latest plan for when their civil war will erupt. Luffy answered in a cryptic tone. I figured that Smoker and his crowd will see about it and Crocodile will never know what hit him. The pirates couldn't even believe that a pirate that a Marine let free, looked so carefree and was smiling as if he won the lottery. As for sending my little brother off, Luffy's features drastically changed, like he seen a ghost hit the deck. Luffy dove for the ground and gently swiped his leg at his crew, causing them to fall too. And they all did right before the walls surrounding them were cut up, like carrots on cutting boards. Damn, when the president said you were good, Mugiwara, he was right about you being a threat to our organization. A gruff voice was heard as soon as the walls collapsed harmlessly around the Straw Hats. They all saw a pair of shadows directly ahead, with the larger one on the right relaxing its arm. You are Mr. One, unless I am mistaken. Luffy addressed the pair that tried to intercept them. Mr. One is a tanned man with long, thin limbs and fingers. He is tall and very muscular and his head is shaven. His most striking feature is probably the black unibrow, right over his round eyes. He has big lips and the archaic Japanese symbol of the number 1 tattooed on his torso. He sported an oriental-looking attire consisting of a sleeveless dark coat with golden edges and white motifs on the front, over very loose beige pants held up by a white sash around the waist, with some light brown fur sprouting from it. His pants were tucked inside some bandages wrapped around his calves and in part around his shoes. And you scored quite the eyesight for a partner, eh? Luffy then shifted focus to the woman standing beside Mr. One. And this girl will give the models a new meaning to the term hourglass figure. May I ask for your fake name, madam? Luffy actually pulled this off, commenting a woman with unbelievable features in a mockery way and avoid getting the wrong impression with his girlfriend. In actuality, Nami was getting more annoyed that Sanji was predictably helpless with this harlot and that this pair is going to slow them down. It's Miss Doublefinger, Mugiwara. Not that it will make any difference since you have nothing on us. Miss Doublefinger is a young, slim woman of average height with curly dark blue hair, thick lips, dark and a curvaceous figure. Her most striking feature was the over-exaggerated way she walks, describing hip swings that are often used to display a SXY woman. Her outfit fitted her figure and sassy attitude perfectly, revealing in dark brown in color. This outfit mainly consists of a short long-sleeved jacket with beige-colored fur brims, a bikini top describing an unusual spiderweb-like pattern across her abdominal area, low-riding pants, and platform sandals. She is sometimes seen smoking from a long whitish pipe. Is that so? Luffy muttered before he charged forward, with his katana in hand. Mr. One saw it and arrogantly thought that he could block it with just the swipe of his bare arm. Instead, Luffy appeared on the other side in a flash and the massive man labeled as One fell to the ground in pain. All the while, Luffy sheathed his sword and spoke in Miss Doublefinger's ear. And you have nothing on us, Paula. That was a whisper in the wind. Only the woman with the revealing outfit heard it and she looked as pale as a ghost. Even more so when she saw Mr. One cut down without a hitch for some reason. Then Luffy moved with a blur to kick away at Mr. One, sending his body through a wall facing the left. Meanwhile, Miss Doublefinger was sent flying into an alleyway to the right, also in a blur. Zoro, you are my first male mate and the one to take my place as captain one day, Luffy then said without facing his crew, and Nami, I love you with all my heart. This was just creeping everyone out, but since you walked blindly into a trap, ignoring my orders, Luffy finally turned to face his friends, with the smile of a man turned mad among his features. I am leaving these two for you to take care of, and don't even try to run. I will double your training as your punishment, understand? Zoro and Nami couldn't argue even if they tried. Not against the man that trained with the devil that Zoro wished to defeat in the far future, and not against the pirate that dominated a tyrant that Nami wished to be killed off. So Zoro charged into the hole in the wall to the left while Nami took the alleyway to the right. Luffy, how could you do that? Vivi finally had enough with the silent treatment and watching everything happen, seeming with her as a background character. Those were Baroque Works agents, the strongest under Crocodile himself. You practically sent your first mate and your girlfriend to their deaths. First off all Vivi, Alvida is my first mate. She is my crewmate before I recruited Zoro. Luffy spoke firmly, with his priorities hard to make out. Second, I am aware that they were a part of Baroque Works. I told you all, walking into a trap blindly, that you will have to pick an agent for yourself. Otherwise it is the usual punishment. Nobody argued. It was still a terrible pain to be so stupid and to see their captain disappointed in them since Luffy had to do everything to get his crew out of this big mess. And if my judgment was off, I will fix my mistakes. I already got this entire island under watch, nothing will escape me. With that said, Luffy walked off to where the two agents tried to block them. The crew hurried to catch up along with Vivi. She was still wrestling her overall concerns and her disapproval of Luffy's tactics for dealing with Baroque Works. Then, Big Brother, I found one big enough for all of us. The uneasy atmosphere was broken when the sounds of heavy poking at the sand was to be heard along with a certain, adorable voice. The Straw Hats were amazed that Chopper appeared, with a new friend. A monstrously big crab with a very wide grin to boot. But where is Scary Face Zoro and Nice Lady Nami? This time, nobody answered. XXXXX back in Rainbase, where Crocodile's casino once stood, Zoro finally found his selected opponent. Mr. One was trying to get himself out of a large pile of rubble that he was sent flying into. What is this crap? I was given orders by the president to kill Mugiwara Luffy. Why are you here, pirate hunter? Zoro simply got into his signature posture, with his swords getting a slight darker hue. Damn, I still can't cover all of my swords with Busashoku Haki, armament Haki. Yet, hope this is still enough. Zoro cursed to himself and then focused his entire attention to Mr. One, who looks barely any more amused. Oh, your captain stuck you with me, eh? Mr. One sneered and got in his own stance. This will just be a short delay. I will hate to have President more humiliated than he already was. It won't matter. Zoro grumbled through the handle of the Wado Ichimonji, a technique that he spent years to perfect. Nobody on this damn sandy wasteland of an island can stop Luffy. Your boss will never win. Should you be more worried about your own defeat? Mr. One, in a single sentence, shoved aside Zoro's words and arrogantly proclaimed his victory before they even started to fight. Then again, your pathetic swords won't even scratch me. And once I am done, I will cut Mugiwara to ribbons, starting with you. Mr. One charged in with his bare hands for a claw swipe. And the kicker was when Zoro tried to block it with one of his three swords only to hear the sounds of blades clashing and saw that Mr. One's hand was actually pushing against him. Zoro then saw something up about that hand and honed instincts screamed for him to jump back. But once Zoro did, he widened his eyes that when Mr. One's second swipe missed, Zoro's clothes were shredded and the house next to them was also sliced and diced. That was when Zoro realized that it must be an Akuma no Mi, devil fruit. Mr. One smirked viciously and then laughed, took you long enough. I ate the Supa no Mi. Dice fruit. I can freely transform my body parts into blades that are matched only by the legendary swords. A lot the one you shamelessly clutch with your dirty teeth. And Zoro found himself doing just that to the Wado Ichimonji, clipping off another small part of his teeth on the handle. Now feel my superior cutting power. Mr. One charged in, with his forearms and fingers each gaining a bladed edge. Supakoringu Deiji, Sparkling Daisy. The large man stabbed and sliced at Zoro, destroying yet another house in the process. Too bad for him that Zoro was able to channel his Busashoku Haki to his swords, acting like a makeshift anvil to meet the hammer. Zoro then called out the strength from his hellish training to send Mr. One flying off. My turn, Onigiri, Demon Cutter. Zoro charged in to swipe all of his swords at Mr. One. But when the three blades met the large agent, Supaida, Cutting Man, Mr. One transformed his body to the density and durability of an actual blade. In a sense, he parred Zoro's blades using himself as one. And the Onigiri attack didn't make Mr. One budge an inch. This allowed the large man to kick Zoro away. Supakuro, Spar Claw. Mr. One then moved in with his entire hand transformed into blades, with speeds greater than previously. It was so fast that Zoro knew that he couldn't recover from the backlash of that sudden defensive move. But it was time to listen to the ancient phrase, in Zoro's own style. Busashoku Tekai, armament iron body. Zoro came up with this defensive style while Luffy was pushing the swordsman through Rokushiki, 6 powers, training. Luffy even allowed Zoro to patient the art of combining the durability of both Tekai, iron defense, and Busashoku Haki as an extra thick defense. And thankfully, it worked and Zoro was spared of the same fate as the ground beneath him. You're just full of surprises. You will make a fine assassin if you didn't decide to become rats of the ocean like your bastard of a captain. Mr. One mocked Zoro and was sent flying again, this time into the ruins of a house that was recently destroyed. Don't talk crap about Luffy. Mr. One heard Zoro roar and was genuinely surprised to see the swordsman lift up an entire house, and threw it towards the former's way. Atomiku Supa, atomic spar. Mr. One shouted, making an X slash that severed both houses into harmlahich only disintegrated on contact with his blades. Fine, we will talk about you and your upcoming defeat. Do your worse. Mr. One then got into his stance again, with blades showing on almost his entire body. Zoro readied his haki and his swords again for a more intensive fight to come. Meanwhile, where is she? Nami was not having such luck finding her opponent, not when Miss Doublefinger happened to disappear in the alleyway to which she was sent flying. Still, Nami wasn't going to lower her guard and had her latest weapon in hand, a polearm that is called the Kleem attack. Truly a masterpiece, and it was all done by Usopp and the man of my life. Nami took a chance to be a little affectionate with her gift from Luffy, but her senses screamed for her to move. Soru, shave. Nami vanished in a blur just in time to avoid large spikes that pierced a wall and a door, causing the building to collapse next as soon as the spikes retracted to who knows where. That harlot is definitely here, Nami thought to herself as soon as she reappeared, with her posture tensed after that attempt at an ambush. But where? Then Nami sensed another attack coming and, with unbelievable grace, she dodged another volley of spikes. What are you, a navigator, a thief or a ballet dancer? Nami narrowed her eyes to where the spikes were protruding from until they too retracted. Out of the hole from which they came from, Miss Doublefinger appeared. Then again, I am sure that while you can amuse your captain, I can give him a real pleasurable time. She mocked Nami with another sway of her hourglass figure. I know Luffy-kun and he has no interest for bitches like you. Nami could have exploded for this insult, but Miss Doublefinger was a dangerous woman to say the least. Charging blindly will just get Nami killed. Not that you had a better reason to be a criminal than to try your luck with a certain crocodile, harlot. Miss Doublefinger had a calm smirk that hid her annoyance with Nami's childish attempts to talk back. Fine. Daburu Sutinga, double stinger. The hourglass woman charged with both of her hands transformed into spikes, stabbing at blurring speeds. But Nami was fast enough to this. Kami-e. K's ni Mayata, paper art. Lost in the wind, Nami relaxed until she was as thin as paper, fluttering with the wind while dodging every single one of the spikes. Then that eventual updraft came and Nami landed, silently and right behind Miss Doublefinger. Now that this, Rankyaku, storm leg. Miss Doublefinger widened her eyes and dodged when spikes appeared from the soles of her shoes, propelling her to a wall to dodge the attack. You certainly surprised me that time, but don't think of me any lower, I am an agent of Baroque works. Sutinga Finga, stinger finger. Yet this attack once again missed as Nami dodged it, without even getting a scratch. Try again, and make it count. The navigator actually mocked Miss Doublefinger, who snarled and got serious. She curled into a ball and caused spikes to completely cover her body. Sutinga Hedgehogu, stinger hedgehog. Miss Doublefinger then charged for Nami, tearing up the ground anything else in her way. Yet Nami merely used her Soru move to dodge it, but this time she readied her legs and kicked. Rankyaku. Hurricane Hasu. Storm leg. Hurricane Lotus. Nami sent blades making up a lotus flower or otherwise a hurricane, with its eye as big as Miss Doublefinger herself. This attack severed all the spikes and caused some more ruins to crumble, falling right on the Miss Doublefinger. Still, the pile of stones and rumble erupted to show Miss Doublefinger and her revealing outfit to be terribly tattered. You are seriously pissing me off. And you will wish that you would have died instead. The woman snarled like an enraged animal and contorted her fingers into very sharp spikes, even some along the rest of her body. My captain is going to be the king of all pirates, and I am going to be the one to map every step he takes. My journey won't end here, so bring it. Nami smiled to herself at how confident she sounded, and she felt just as much, even while she was staring down a dangerous woman like this one. XXXXX back in the main desert in Alabastra. Nice choice, little brother. Your gift with creatures had gotten us a moving crab. Luffy patronized Chopper, enjoying the little reindeer's cute dance while ignoring Chopper's attempt to reject the praise. Because you were such a good boy. You can wait out the next enemy to face if you want to. How is that fair? Usopp shouted, either brave or foolish. Either way, Luffy didn't look too happy about it. It is fair, not because Chopper is my little brother. It is because he had gotten us the means to get Vivi over to where the war is going to happen. What did you do that was just as helpful, Usopp? Luffy answered, and the sniper wished that he will just shrink to get away from the embarrassment. Then, heads up. Luffy moved to shove Vivi down to kiss the top of the moving crab, and raised his other arm to catch a certain golden hook. Get the princess to her stop, safe and sound, guys. I will catch up. Luffy gave his orders and tugged at the hook, with a stream of sand attached. Like a fishing line, Luffy was pulled away from the moving crab as it carried his crew further and without any interruptions, hopefully. Meanwhile, Luffy saw that he was nearing his destination and got himself down when he struck the sand stream connecting the golden hook to Crocodile. And the Shichibuki didn't look any happier from when the two pirates faced each other in the flooded underground dining room. This is it. No more waiting. Are you ready for our rematch, Crocodile? Luffy mocked the Shichibuki in front of him, confident that Crocodile will never run again, because of his anger and hurt pride. And this time, Luffy, with his body steaming again and his blades at hand, didn't scare Crocodile. Just made him even angrier. Here, you will die, Mugiwara, Crocodile snarled and summoned the desert itself to his beck and call. This battle will definitely end with blood among the sands. Nice show, Crocodile. Luffy said, truly not impressed. Then the captain braced his right arm, right before it vanished for a moment. And Crocodile's torso seemed to have been struck by a punch that caused it to turn into loose sands. Luffy hid the little smirk that grew on his cheeks, making himself eat his own words. You will notice that a logia is slightly more dangerous than a mere, pathetic paramecia user like yourself. But I am above even that mark, Crocodile responded with yet more arrogant dialogue. You might get somewhere else with your blades, after how you destroyed my casino. But I have trained hard too, to fully develop my Akuma no Mi, devil fruit, power. The power of the Suna no Mi, sand fruit. My skill has reached the point that ambushes no longer can harm me. Crocodile started to laugh once again until he felt pain, smashing in his eyes, nose and teeth. All the more reason to not waste my energy, Crocodile, Luffy said, with his left arm and fist tensed. There was even smears of blood and a few teeth temporarily dislodged in the skin. Watching the Shichibuki, royal warlord, get up, Luffy went on. It's like you said, I trained hard. I trained till I thought I will die, every single day for a whole decade. It's enough to make a man go mad, but I made it, and now, you won't win against this rookie. Hockey, Crocodile spurted out blood that lingered in his mouth for a few moments longer. You really are no ordinary rookie. Nobody in the weak East Blue will even know about hockey. Luffy couldn't keep his smirk hidden anymore once it spread to the rest of his lips. Yeah, nobody local to the East Blue trained me about hockey. The captain with the straw hat said before his body turned pink and steamy again. But enough about me. Busashaku. Jetto Shigen, armament. Jet finger pistol. Luffy shot out his right arm into a flash once again, and Crocodile was struck in the shoulder, as if a rhino had rammed its horn right at that spot. Come on, Crocodile. I have 1,000,000 of them ready to see that you fall here, in the desert where you are right at home. Luffy shouted and reacted with his senses when the something hurried through the sands like a torpedo. And Luffy saw that Crocodile was ignoring the clear wound on the shoulder, which only made the pirate captain smirk. That's more like it. Crocodile couldn't believe that a rookie was able to get so much humiliation and smearing on his pride, and Luffy still wasn't dead yet. You will drown in the sands for all this. Desato Supata, Desert Spada. Crocodile slammed his fist down on the desert surface and another surge of sands toward Luffy. Too bad that the Straw Hat Captain was as agile and hard to hit as he was irritating the Shichibuki. You won't escape this, Desato Girasor, Desert Girasole. The desert suddenly turned to quicksand and actually caught Luffy by the ankles of his feet, swiftly pulling the rookie captain down below. Then it suddenly erupted with a geyser of something thick and red, like blood. Yet it only drenched Crocodile in it and the desert sands near his feet. Huh? Not so strong, you damn rookie. Crocodile noticed that his sights were getting blurry and somehow, he was extremely dizzy and lightheaded. What the hell? Aruabata, Ale Avatar. Do we have to repeat your lesson all over again? Luffy appeared right behind Crocodile. I simply told him to keep you busy while you were playing around in your sandbox. And you still drink wine, eh, Crossy? Luffy stated before hitting the Shichibuki hard on his back, promptly the once proud Crocodile to vomit shamelessly and right in front of Luffy. You, Crocodile tried to growl, but even that was difficult with his dinner from tonight and the previous nights were all coming out in a rather disgusting waterfall. Luffy's smirk didn't even flatter. Don't be a baby, Crossy. Luffy mocked the Shichibuki. It is just that you are not only letting loose the contents of your fat stomach, there is just some of your strength gushing out too. Crocodile widened his eyes and tried to stop the waterfall that just won't stop, only for his only good hand to not budge. It would only daggle like a limp snake's tail. You can thank the Yaparao Mani Nijiru, relieving before sober, technique, only one of my million tricks. That was it, Crocodile couldn't take it anymore and screamed for his power to turn him into sand to escape, not caring if they were getting covered in his stomach juices. Crocodile even ignored the fact that he was suddenly at his 100% once he was freed from Luffy's touch on his back. Die, Suburusu, Crocodile screamed with the face of a man turned mad, not holding back anymore. This time, his sandstorm instantly reached several feet high and several meters wide. It threatened to engulf most of the very desert of Alabasta, though one thing was clear. Everyone on the sandy island will all see it for themselves. XXXXX. Meanwhile, how can any of you not see that Luffy is going to get killed out there? Vivi was besides herself when she could see the large sandstorm raging in the desert. She could tell that this was Crocodile and it actually made her realize that he had the power to wipe out an entire town. How can Luffy even keep up with that much power? Vivi, Usopp had nothing to say that the worried-to-death princess hadn't heard before. Not that it mattered, she won't feel any better about this even if the sniper had to try to speak for his captain's sake. Usopp's eyes then shot out, his arms swiftly grabbing his rifle and shot out a round at a random angle. Only for the shot to explode in the air in a fashion that meets something else fired. More agents from Baroque Works. No doubt here to see that you never get to Alubarna, Usopp said while getting the rest of his belongings laid out on the moving crab, prompting Vivi to act. You are not serious about facing them, Usopp. These agents are not standard pirates. They are killers, heartless assassins. You will get killed. Vivi just couldn't believe that her friends were running off or being sent by Luffy, one by one. And all they had to say was for her to get to the capital of Alabasta. There are worse things, Vivi. And if I am going to get killed, it wouldn't be from a wound to my back. Those kill cowards and I will not die a coward, Usopp retorted. Besides, Luffy wants me to be his sniper. The one who will protect the king of pirates, and that is why I am going. It will be faster that way. With that said, Usopp jumped off the moving crab, landing back on the desert with real grace this time. But before Vivi could call out for him again, Chopper gave the reins to Alvida. Protect Vivi the best you can, and hurry, the little doctor said and jumped off the moving large creature to try and keep up with Usopp while in reindeer form. Just what is wrong with this crew? Vivi proclaimed to the heavens while Alvida ignored her, not bothering to tell the princess that another crewmate also flew the co-op. She just directed the moving crab towards their destination. And soon enough, Usopp and Chopper had finally found the would-be assassins that were foiled in killing Vivi. It was another pair of agents this time, but with a rather strange weapon in hand. The name is Miss Merry Christmas. I am a princess among you idiots. Miss Merry Christmas is a stout, middle-aged woman with red hair. She wears a necktie that resembles a Christmas tree, which goes with her code name. Other notable attire includes a large pair of purple-lensed sunglasses, a basket strapped to her back, and sandals. A lot like this one I was forced to be paired with, Mr. Fore. Mr. Fore is rather tall and fat, has big lips, and wears a green shirt that covers most of his body with black pants and gray running shoes. Like all other officer agents, his number is expressed somewhere on his clothing or his person. Mr. Fore has an obscure "4" design on his shirt, as well as a "4" on his baseball bat. Sorry, miss, mere. The large brute spoke so slow, it was like his tongue was as slow as a snail. It was ridiculous. Never mind, you idiot. Shut up, the little woman retorted harshly. Anyhow, you two idiots just walked up to your deaths. With my brains, Mr. Fore's brawn, and our trusty lasso. Lasso was simply a sandy brown gun, similar to a bazooka, that has handles on the sides and a contoured barrel. It's bad enough that we are stuck with a mole, a dunderhead, and both name their gun like a house pet. My father and I will be embarrassed by their obsession. Usopp mocked them and got an immediate response out of the short lady. I am not a mole. Not just yet. Usopp and Chopper only showed as little as an eyebrow raised. That's right, as a prince, I ate an Akuma no Mi. The Mogu Mogu no Mi, mole fruit. Watch and weep. Idiots. While not gaining as much an inch taller, the lady's face gained a mole's snout while her hands and feet gained large claws. Now you are a penguin? Usopp commented bluntly, which got the mole woman really ticked. But she didn't say a word when the assassin saw that Usopp had a knowing smirk on his face, one that said, I know what you are but I don't care, never mind. You are still not going to harm Vivi, none of you will. You won't steal this country. Watch us, you big idiot, hit that freakish tanuki, raccoon dog. The mole woman screamed at her partner and the massive man moved in with a large metal bat, with speeds that surprised the two straw hats. Usopp was able to move at high speeds, yet his skill with Soru hadn't reached the level of even a blur just yet. Meanwhile, Chopper took out one of his rumble balls and activated his guard point form to take an otherwise fatal blow. Meanwhile, Usopp heard that voice and had a shiver down his spine, that something painful was going to happen. And the sniper cursed himself for lowering his guard, which allowed a pair of mole hands to grab his legs by the ankles. I will have my fun with you, nose freak. Mogurazuka Highway, Moletown Highway. It was the mole woman, apparently digging underneath the surface of the desert sands. And she dragged Usopp along at impressive speeds, until the sniper saw that she was going to dig underneath some rubble and walls of some ruins. And, Mogu Mogu Inpakuto, Mole Impact. It was clear about Miss Merry Christmas's idea of an attack. And Usopp felt it with pain throughout his body. With every wall he was forced to go right through while the grip on his ankles never loosened. What's the matter? The mole woman asked sadistically, still holding Usopp's legs after that barrage of walls. The sniper looked slightly rugged and worn, with his clothes dirtied with sand and rock from the rubble. Are you out already? You really are the third wheel of them all, idiots? You're pathetic? Actually, Usopp then spoke up and the mole woman finally gazed up to see that Usopp's entire front side was shiny black, without as much as a scratch. I was waiting for you to run out of walls to drag me through. Then you won't be able to stop me from doing this. Usopp descended his fist downward and hit Miss Merry Christmas hard on the head. Then the sniper grasped it and threw the mole woman high into the air. And this, Usopp aimed his rifle directly at the sky and shot out rounds that were off like sonic booms, causing the agent to explode before landing on the ground, burnt worse than a roasted pig overdone. Cough cough. Miss Merry Christmas got up and looked very unhappy about this turnabout. You really are getting on my nerves, you idiot. I am an agent of Baroque works. Miss Merry Christmas readied her mole hand to strike at Usopp. Mogora banana. Mole palm shoot. The mole woman charged with her mole fangs ready to claw at the sniper, but Usopp charged for Miss Merry Christmas with his rifle, this time covered in hockey but also with something else. Something that caused the mole woman to fall to the ground, which then exploded at the touch, right when Usopp passed her. Taruno Shitano Kakushiha. Hidden blade underneath the barrel. A close looker at Usopp's rifle revealed indeed a hidden blade edge that was located directly beneath the gun barrel, making for a robust sword. Something that Usopp had come up with since he felt a little below standard since most of the men in the Straw Hat crew knew how to fight with blades. Then Usopp's senses awoken when a certain large figure cast his shadow over Usopp. It was the slow-talking Mr. Fore, readying his 4-ton metal bat for the kill. Yet Usopp didn't try to run and instead raised both his right arm and rifle, still clad in Busashoku haki. And, with a large clang, Mr. Fore was shocked to see that Usopp had blocked his attack. The large brute just didn't notice that Usopp had also covered his entire arm with haki that allowed the sniper to take the fatal blow with pride. Luffy, thank you for teaching me the 2 forms of haki. I wish that you can see how this power is finally making me a man. A sniper worthy of the Pirate King. Usopp thought himself causally, like blocking a metal bat with a rifle was a typical thing to happen. Then again, it was the Straw Hats, who experience chaos and the unbelievable and unexpected every single day. You idiot! Where were you when I needed you? Miss Merry Christmas shouted as she tried to get up from having not 1 but 2 explosions happen up close and personal today. Her head was still pounding. And watch it, look, you idiot! The mole woman called out off frustration than anything since Mr. Fore was about to be ambushed, and for real this time. Masatazu. Futaseido Sakura, Master Hoof. Side Sakura, Chopper appeared again in his master form, sending away the Mr. Fore. Thanks, but let me have some fun, I want to impress Big Brother too. Usopp smirked, not offended the least. Whatever Chopper. You get the big guy and I will keep an eye out for this penguin of a bitch. Usopp replied with his back facing Chopper's, a lot like the popular scene of 2 close partners surrounded by enemies. Meanwhile, near one of the ruins that haven't been demolished yet, a certain girl was watching everything from the safety and comfort being out of sight. But Kaya wasn't happy about hiding. She was a doctor, she was a woman, and she was also one of Luffy's crewmates. Usopp and Nami have finished their hiding days, so why is Kaya hiding now? Why am I hiding? I should be down there with Usopp-kun and Chopper-sensei. Why am I hiding? And after how I started training with the both of them, Kaya cursed internally and then remembered when she finally broke the ice, asking a genuine doctor to take her in. Even if that doctor was a little, talking reindeer. Flashback begins. Mr. Chopper, the little reindeer doctor was busy sorting out his medicine and doctor tools from within a small room in the King's Gourd that Luffy had reserved to be the med bay. It was almost as big as standard bedroom, with various cabinets and wall tables along with a couple of medical beds. There was even a spot in the room for the doctor's private study, behind a sheet. Then Chopper had a visitor. Kaya saw that the door was ajar and when knocking didn't get Chopper's attention, she spoke up. May I ask you something? Kaya asked Chopper again and the little reindeer nodded. Go ahead, you just got started. Whatever Chopper said that out of innocence or to sneak in a clever joke, it didn't matter. May you take me as your student? Chopper felt his hat fly off his head for a few centimeters at the volume of that tone. Kaya blushed and covered her mouth almost instantly. I mean that I have been treating the crew and I have been studying my medicine. My dream is to be a world-class doctor and you were trained by the once famous Dr. Kureha. Hold it. Chopper spoke sternly and Kaya halted accordingly. I understand your concerns and Big Brother already told me about your dream. But there should be nothing that wouldn't allow me to take you as anything less than a student, especially the doctress. Kaya nodded, feeling a little ashamed. My point is, are you willing to not only learn from books but also from doesn't stay in an office, waiting for his next patient? They are people that are willing and able to walk even though danger to help the injured they come across. Chopper explained and Kaya nodded, with eyes that were focused all on the little reindeer. This means that you won't be waiting on the sidelines to heal and fix, you have to be besides your friends at all times to be a real doctor. Chopper finished. I am asking that are you willing to train to be both a healer and a woman that can take care of herself? That is what a real doctor is all about. It is how both Big Brother and the doctress trained me, and it was as hard as hell. I still will. Kaya finally spoke up. I will train and study hard. I will be a pirate that will be there when Mr. Luffy becomes Pirate King, she proclaimed and Chopper nodded. So am I, Kaya. I still have a lot to learn, but on this journey, you will not only learn from me but I will also learn from you. Chopper answered. You will be my student for half the time and the other half, we are co-doctors and partners like with the rest of the crew. Is that understood? Kaya nodded. And Chopper got down from his chair. Then let's get started. Yes, sir. This time, Chopper took it with a smile and nothing else. Flashback ends. No more. Kaya told herself once she returned from memory lane. No more hiding, Chopper-sensei and Usopp-kun need my help. And more importantly, Luffy-kun needs me to fight. Now. And the young lady vanished in a flash. And just as this was happening, Usopp and Chopper jumped high up to avoid another one of Miss Merry Christmas's attacks from the sands. But the assassins counted on that and Mr. Fore appeared out of nowhere, with his metal bat ready for a merciless downward strike. Both of the Straw Hats called out for their Haki to take most of the damage, but they weren't the ones hit by the bat. It was someone moving at a blur and took the weapon head on. Once Usopp and Chopper landed back on the ground, they were in shock to see Kaya-chan. It was Kaya all right, and with both of her arms severed at the elbows, Miss Merry Christmas saw that and started to laugh. Nice one, girlie. You're the Pin-Nose's meat shield and now you won't even be able to do your hair again. That will teach you to be reckless. The mole woman wanted to laugh more, but then the sands were sliced through with a clean cut, done by a large blade. And Mr. Fore was attacked in a similar way, prompting everyone to look around for the culprit. It may be reckless, and it will worry my boyfriend and my teacher half to death. It was Kaya that spoke, not even flinching with both of her arms cut through. She just had one of her thin and slender legs raised up high. But it is the way my captain trained me to fight, a lot like a lizard. Kaya's arms regrew in mere seconds. While the assassins were baffled, at a loss as how it happened, both Usopp and Chopper remembered that Kaya had ate an Akuma no Mi days ago, prior to entering the Grand Line itself. So how about it, boys? May I fight aside you both? Kaya's sweet, sickly as well, smile left everyone speechless. XXXXX. And while all this was happening, Ushibari, Bull Needles. Saperaru Horo, Spiral Hollow, Zoro charged with his two primary swords, positioned like a bull's horn ready for the ramming and stabbing. Too bad for Zoro, it was blocked by Mr. One, who used his powers to create rapid spinning blades on both forearms. Then it was too bad for the assassin that their stalemate will received interference, when one of the intact walls exploded. This was enough to get their attention until a body was sent flying and right into Mr. One, sending the large man to the ground in a body pile. What the hell? Zoro could only be in awe, especially when Nami walked calmly out of the hole in the wall. Oh, there you were, Zoro. You guys' racket made it hard to concentrate. Sorry about this interruption. Zoro couldn't believe that Nami turned into such an unbelievable woman. He secretly praised and blamed Luffy for all this. Meanwhile, Mr. One was grumbling about the interruption with his partner on top. The problem was that Miss Doublefinger appeared to have been traumatized by something. She was frozen stiff with fear, staring at the blue, yellow and red spheres that floated around them both. Just watch this, Zoro. Nami said, reviewing herself to be the sources of these strange balls. Ryun no Tempo, Thundercloud Tempo. Zoro was not disappointed with the results. He just watched in awe and a slight paled to see a collected area of thunder and lightning appear out of nowhere and assaulted the pair of assassins. All the while, Nami looked upon her handiwork with the smirk of a sadist lover of battle. So, what would you say, Zoro? What to team up? If you help me win, I will lower your debits by 30%. Nami tried her sweet look and smile on Zoro, who just huffed it off with a mumble. Until the real kicker came, and I can help convince Luffy-kun to let up our punishment. It will be fun, more for me. Fine, Zoro retorted loudly. He couldn't believe that this was happening. His captain's girl talking about private fun, right in front of a pair of killers. Even if they were trying to ignore the numbing feeling in their arms and legs. If you take out the prickly one, I will not tell Luffy what you tried to do me. Nami just smiled and quickly patted the swordsman on the head, so swift that Zoro only noticed something touch his hair. Regardless, both of them readied their weapons and braced for a couple of assassins, no longer holding back. XXXXX, Princess Vivi. That was the greeting presented to the moving crab when it finally arrived at the capital of Alabasta. It was all done by a large crowd of citizens that grouped all around the giant vehicle creature. There were especially men dressed in thick uniforms, which resembled that of ancient Egyptian guards. One of them asked, "Thank goodness you are safe and well, but where is Igaram-san?" He tried to get Baroque works off my trail for a few moments before his ship exploded. Vivi said, much to the horror of the guards and the crowd. Still, a close friend of mine told me that somehow, Igaram is alive and hidden for the time being. This didn't lift any of their spirits. It was understandable since they are unaware on how they can trust this close friend, like Vivi does. Nevertheless, it is good to see you again, my daughter. This was really cut through the tension, and since this figure called Vivi his daughter, it could only be the king at conflicts here in Alabasta, Nefeltari Cobra. Cobra is a man of average height. He has a wrinkled face, a tied-off beard, and long, curly, black hair. He wears a green robe with yellow edging, an orange and beige sash around his waist, and a purple coat. He also wears sandals and a necklace. Yet somehow, Vivi felt like there was something off about her. Father, it brings joy to my heart to see you in company of fine ladies that travel the sea. You must have made friends with them all. That was when Alvida took her club and struck King Cobra on the face with it. This shocked everyone, and when Vivi was about to speak up, the king wouldn't have known that there are more ladies than me in the crew. And especially since there is nothing that gives me away that I am a sailor, least a pirate. Only a certain impersonator, Mr. 2. Everyone turned to the king, who started to chuckle at a very high voice. You are half right, with the name that is. Once the king got up, everyone was shocked to see that it was simply someone else entirely that was just wearing the king's robes. My full code name is Mr. 2 Bon Clay. Snazzy and beautiful, isn't it? Vivi was shocked and started to realize that it was no coincidence that the flamboyant sailor from ages ago had her father's face. She even noticed that Luffy did as well. No doubt he told a couple of his crewmates to keep it in mind. Whatever freak. Captain has told me that since Mr. Mosshead has the #1 agent, I will make do with the next best thing. Alvida retore mace readied for the head bashing. Meanwhile, the cross-dressing Mr. 2 Bon Clay, or whatever, had gotten into a martial artist stance that looked a lot like a ballet dancer's posture. This may be freakish, but this guy was still an assassin, and a strong one if he was enlisted by Crocodile himself. Then it happened. Another sandstorm had appeared at the very core of the Alabasta deserts, so large that it could be seen as far from Rainbase as here in Alubarna. Yet, once the storm was in sight, it suddenly exploded. What came after will be sealed in history and in everyone's minds forever. It rained, for the first time in ages, just not of water, but of blood.